Yes.
The lead Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1326 of the War News stream. And today we have very big news. It seems a new war is breaking out. The Afghan-Pakistan conflict has apparently begun after a major Taliban attack today on Pakistan. We've also seen that armed Russians have been spotted on the Estonian border, and also Putin's declared a new nuclear arms race that has begun effective today. So very big news from everywhere around the world, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world. And for those of y'all who have 2025 Apocalypse bingo cards, if you had Pakistan being invaded by Afghanistan on your bingo card, make sure to scratch that one off, because that actually happened today. We have been able to hear over the past 24 hours that the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan has conducted an armed attack on the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, conducting an armed invasion within a limited area, leading to the capture of 8 Pakistani soldiers and significant firefights that have broken out along the entire length of the Afghan-Pakistani border. This is the largest armed action that we have seen within the area since the withdrawal of U.S. forces in 2021, and it does appear that the Afghans and Pakistanis have engaged in what can only be described as absolutely tectonic-sized battles on the border over the course of the day. Afghan forces have stated that they will now be ceasing their hostilities for the moment, but we do not believe that this is far from being over, as it does appear that the Pakistanis will most likely be responding due to the fact that some Pakistani soldiers were taken hostage, as well as the fact that the Afghans have conducted a significant attack along the entirety of the border today. Not only that, we have been able to hear and see picture and video evidence confirming the appearance of Russian armed forces directly across from the Estonian border. These soldiers, while not wearing direct uniforms of the Russian armed forces, are believed to be armed combatants of the Russian Federation. This led to the Republic of Estonia shutting down its borders across its entire length with the Russian Federation today, and it does appear that this is another incident incredibly similar to the 2014 Grainman incidents, which came out of the invasion of Crimea and also the Donbass conflict, which arose during that period of time. Belarusian military forces have been put on a state of full combat readiness as of today, while Denmark is also announcing billions for additional Arctic defense, building up their facilities and defense forces within Greenland and other territories inside the Arctic Circle. The Russian Federation has taken significant attacks over the night from Ukrainian armed forces, as we have been able to see smoke rising from the city of Smolensk, and the largest refinery in the Russian Federation in the city of Ufa was also hit by Ukrainian Lyuti long-range drone, causing decent damage. We also heard word that President Vladimir Putin is largely declaring a new nuclear arms race as of today, preemptively before the end of the START II treaty, which he has been talking about heavily over the past few days, while Ukrainian armed forces have been able to hold the line, inflict incredibly high casualties onto the Russian Federation's armed forces, and not only that, retake ground, at least within the Sumy Oblast, as of today. The Belgrade power plant was also hit overnight, and a decent amount of the city is once again without power, while we are hearing inside the Middle East that the ceasefire is still holding while the Israelis are waiting the release of the hostages by Hamas. 3 Qatari diplomats died today inside of the Egyptian town of Sharm el-Sheikh on the southern end of the Sinai Peninsula in very dubious circumstances in the midst of a car crash. We were able to hear that these 3 diplomats are somewhat crucial to the developments within the area, and all 3 of them did die within the car crash that was seen inside the southern end of the Sinai Peninsula. North Korea has also displayed some of its new Hwasong-20 intercontinental ballistic missiles and their transport erector launchers during a nighttime parade held in Pyongyang just a few hours ago, while also showcasing the North Korean expeditionary forces which have returned from the Russian Federation for the parade. We have also seen that the United States Navy currently has auxiliary vessels within the area near to Puerto Rico at the port of Ponce, as it seems that the United States' presence is now going to be long-term enough that it requires U.S. Navy tenders and oilers to arrive within the area to help to assist with long-term operations and power projection within the area, suggesting we will be there for quite some time. We have a massive amount of news to cover tonight, folks. I cannot lie. This is a crazy day. It's really the craziest day that we've seen recently, because once again, things are happening that we didn't expect to escalate this quickly, this fast, or really this much at all. We had been knowing about the Afghan-Pakistani border conflict for months and have been reporting on that for the smaller amount of times when it has happened, but I don't think anyone could have foreseen this turning into a full-blown actual conflict between the two parties. And we're actually going to be starting...
Honestly, wild escalations today. That whole situation blew up overnight, like literally blew up overnight. They've launched attacks across the entire border pretty much, which is totally unexpected.
It really is actually totally unexpected, folks, and we're going to be making sure to cover that news first, which is our largest story of the day, and then move into our other larger stories, moving on down through the night in terms of importance throughout the entirety of the news. We are going to be starting today's news coverage with the Afghan-Pakistan war, or the Taliban-Pakistan war, whichever way you want to put it. The Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan and Pakistan have been having continuously rising tensions for about a year at this point, ever since the Taliban started to run into issues with the Pakistanis due to the Balochistan people. If you do not know a lot about the ethnic breakdown of this region, at least here within Central Asia, while the Afghans and Pakistanis are largely looked at as one large cultural group, or 2 large cultural groups within the area, the Afghans are actually a loose confederation of hundreds of different cultural and ethnic groups inside of their country, while the Pakistanis are largely a semi-homogeneous state with a largely similar culture throughout the nation. However, both Pakistan and Afghanistan, along their southern borders, shares a significant population of people who are called the Balochistanis. The Balochistani people have been vying for an attempt to create an independent state here in recent years, and thus, as a result, inside of southwestern Pakistan, within the region of Balochistan itself, the Balochistani people have been moving forward with the Balochistani independence movement, which has been declared as a terrorist force not only by the United States, but by Pakistan and multiple other nations around the world. The Balochistani independence movement conducts terrorist attacks inside of Pakistan, but also uses Afghanistan as a safe harbor and basing area for further operations inside of Pakistan. Due to the Taliban's loose, centralized control of Afghanistan, these operations, while not necessarily within the Taliban's best interest, are still conducted from inside of inside of Afghanistan. And over the past year, border skirmishes have been seen as Pakistani forces attempted to try and chase the Balochistani independence fighters all the way into Afghanistan itself in an attempt to destroy them. Usually that would lead to firefights that would break out between the Taliban and the Pakistanis, considering that the Taliban are considering this to be a violation of Afghanistan's sovereign borders, And we have also seen that in other times, the tensions have just boiled over into small firefights and skirmishes along the entirety of the Afghan border that sporadically appear and then dissipate about as quickly as they start. Over the past few days, however, the tensions have completely been blown out of proportion. The Pakistanis started airstrikes throughout the entirety of Afghanistan's southern regions, where the Pakistani independence movement is still basing and operating out of, and we've also seen airstrikes against the Taliban directly around the city of Kabul. The Afghans then announced, or largely the Taliban then announced, that they would be conducting a counter-operation to the Pakistanis and the attack that they had just conducted inside of their country. We were actually able to see the Minister of Defense of Afghanistan here on a Baofeng radio communicating with all of the forces of Afghanistan, which were at the border today, which conducted, and I'm not even kidding folks, a legitimate armed invasion into Pakistan. So I once again want to remind you all, just in case you're wondering if this year can get crazy enough, the people who we literally consider to be terrorists that we usually aligned to very primitive sorts of technologies, at least in our prior understandings of them, have now conducted an armed invasion today of a nuclear-armed power within the Indian subcontinent. Just to put it into perspective what this is at its most basic level. We were able to see, starting off first, or at least the first firefights that we saw throughout the day, were actually around the areas of the city of Jalalabad and Peshawar, which were conducted by the 201st of the Afghan Armed Forces. To say that the firefight was heavy would be cutting it down a little short, as the Afghan Army's 201st Khalid ibn Walid Corps targeted a Pakistani outpost within this area of the border and started to launch significant attacks onto the base. This footage that you'll be seeing here in a second is a small glimpse of what the entire firefight looked like over the course of about 2 hours. So here's the clip. Now we can see them firing directly into the Pakistani outpost, laying down hell. It appears that they are firing with heavy machine guns and direct assault guns, either from a tank or a recoilless gun, directly into the outpost. Tracers litter the hillside across the border, continuing to burn, as we also see in a second that the Afghans have deployed some sort of a larger explosive and detonated about a quarter of the base across the border.
Honestly, absolutely insanity going on, and also no concept of ammo conservation whatsoever. They seem like they're firing everything they've got all at once. It's honestly a crazy scene, like the amount of ammo that's being put down range in that one clip right here. That's wild.
I'm not going to lie, folks. It's very rare to ever see this amount of ammunition being flung at anything at any given moment. I do not even know if this entire corps has any ammunition left over after a firefight this intense lasted for 2 straight hours. I'm assuming that this corps has literally depleted its entire ammunition reserve within that 2-hour firefight at this specific outpost. But nevertheless,
well, and until you factor in Bagram Air Base, I'm not sure where they're getting all this ammunition from, but you know, Bagram was left behind a lot of American equipment. So we've seen Humvees rolling through the streets today, quite a few American Humvees that were apparently left behind that are being used by the Taliban now. So they might also have a huge access to maybe ammunition stocks as well, would be my speculation.
I would suppose that they have to have a significant access to ammunition, considering the amount that they're expending it here, and I would assume that at least someone up at a higher level at the Corps Command had to have taken ammo consumption into a factor of a sort to tell them how much ammunition could be fired over a short period of time. We also got an additional clip here of the 201st opening fire in this clip as well, which we can see here. We definitely know this is Afghanistan. And we can see them firing.
They are letting something loose on that building right there. Jeez.
It appears that they fired what I'm assuming are 2 recoilless guns at that position ahead of us in the dark. Because one thing that's a little bit interesting, folks, let's listen to that again. It's a very light-sounding sort of a boom that comes from the gun, and also that appears to be a larger caliber, at least a 105mm or larger. So what I'm assuming is that they've moved up some form of a recoilless gun, like an SPG-9 of some sort, and they are using these to directly fire on the Pakistani positions that are right across the border. An SPG-9 is nothing that is American-provided, but these are so numerous, even inside of Afghanistan, after the Soviet-Afghan War ended decades ago, that it's highly likely that they could be using these, as these sound fairly similar, except for the lack of the ringing noise, considering that we're probably a good bit of ways away in the film from being near to the SPG-9, And this is most likely what they're using in larger amounts to fire across the border at the Pakistanis whenever you're seeing these larger explosions or cannon-like rounds being fired at the Pakistanis. Suffice to say, the 201st was really laying it out there onto the Pakistanis today within the area just north of the city of Peshawar along the border. But we also saw even larger firefights, well, not larger, I think that might be a bit of an exaggeration, similarly sized firefights. I don't really think we could get bigger than the first one we started out with, happening directly along the border crossing point at Torkham, which is a village that is kind of straddling both sides of the border. And we were able to see some firefights breaking out within this area as well, and here's some of that footage.
What else?
Actually, sorry, that one is a duplicate. I'm sorry, folks. There's a lot of them taken in the middle of the night. It's really hard to tell them apart. This should be the footage from this border area, and this actually is. So here's the clip. We're not quite sure what this was, by the way, folks. We do not know if this was some attempted air defense, considering the high angle that they're firing at, or whether this was just a firefight in general, and there's some hillsides or ridges that we can't see due to the night, not really giving us a great field of view. But tracer fire was once again passing across the border in all directions in this area between the Pakistani armed forces and the Taliban armed forces on the other side of the border. We can see the rounds flying just about everywhere.
And also, my forces were saying it was air defense fire. So I think this is their version of air defense, which is literally fire just tracer rounds pretty much every direction you possibly can and hope it hits something. So that's their spray and pray mode, I guess you could say.
I mean, it may be. It's a little interesting because a lot of that fire is actually skirting directly along the ground. And I think, let's see, they are saying that this is supposedly air defense activity. I'm not really sure, folks, because it kind of looks like a mix of just firing wildly and also firing at targets on the ground. So it might be a mix of everything here in this clip, or it may just be pure air defense. It's a little bit unclear. But the firefight was quite significant, or at least the volume of fire was heavily significant. And it just keeps going.
I didn't know they had this much ammo at their disposal, honestly.
Me either. Like, honestly, this is a shock. And the fire continues throughout the whole clip at this kind of a clip. I gotta be honest with y'all. This is insane, the amount of small arms fire. We have been able to hear that Pakistani weather officials on the other side of the border have been telling people to carry umbrellas due to a heavy chance of lead raining from the sky today, so it does appear that the firefights were incredibly significant. While the Afghans appeared to have the situation largely under their control, it was not without the Pakistanis responding in their own form and conducting airstrikes and artillery strikes on convoys and key military targets of the Taliban near to the border area. This footage here actually comes from a forward observer, which is most likely a drone with an infrared camera, that was spotting and helping to align the fire of Pakistani artillery batteries across the border on this incoming Afghan convoy. And we can see here the infrared camera showing us what appears to be some sort of movement of Afghan forces down here as Pakistani artillery starts to land nearly on top of them. We can now see the silhouettes of the figures now moving around inside the trees, trying to get out of the area as Pakistani artillery continues to land down near to this roadway.
And also, this is the Pakistanis using thermals to find the Taliban in the forest. Am I correct?
From what we understand, it is.
Okay, interesting. So the Pakistanis have some. What is this? A drone taking this or something? It's obvious in the sky.
It looks to be a drone of some sort. It has a really high angle of view, or it could be, just to put this out there, considering that it is quite a mountainous area, this could quite truly just be a man-forward observer who is using a camera out there to be able to spot these guys, but it most likely is a drone. But I do want to point out to folks that the graphics on this thermal optic are incredibly crude, which would suggest that this is some form of a first-generation thermal system, considering that it does not have a high graphical fidelity, which is pretty much analogous with a first-generation thermal system. Still, the Pakistanis did return fire on the Taliban today within this area, and they also returned fire in other areas as well, including bases and compounds of the Afghan military further on inside the country. We were able to see direct hits being landed by the Pakistanis Pakistanis on this facility here, and we also were able to see other hits being landed at bases throughout the entirety of the region, including this one in this video right here. This appears to have been filmed from inside of a Pakistani military installation, showing the footage either of the strike as it was happening or the strike in replay. It appears that it's most likely in replay, because there's some sort of a universal TV remote menu down here at the bottom. The airstrikes appear to be landing in some sort of a compound or a facility of some sort within Afghanistan. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get an exact location of this, but it does appear that they are landing pretty decent hits within that area.
Excellent.
When you see the Pakistanis continuing to talk about the footage as it plays. And we can also note, folks, another thing that I'd like to point out here, the graphics and the fidelity of the footage here from this infrared is a lot higher, which is showing that the Pakistanis do not have a consistent fidelity or technological peak for their infrared systems. It's actually a hodgepodge of first generation, second generation, and third generation infrared systems that they are using, because this footage is actually incredibly crisp, while the last footage we saw was incredibly crude. Nevertheless, it did appear that the Pakistanis were largely striking the areas inside of Afghanistan, and we also saw that they were directly striking checkpoints and posts directly along the Afghan border, including this one, which is near to the border crossing at Angor Ada, which is situated in Waziristan, a fairly whimsical name for what we're about to watch. The Pakistanis did land a direct hit onto this checkpoint, and you will actually see some members of the Taliban fleeing from the checkpoint and trying to make a run for it into some sort of a different area away from the checkpoint itself, which was being directly targeted by the Pakistanis. We can see the footage continuing to play, and we can finally see some of the Taliban fighters taking a run from the checkpoint. Actually, a large amount of them. It's about an entire squad's worth of men making a run out of this checkpoint and towards the hills. And there they go. That's the end of that clip right there, but still showing us that the Pakistanis were returning fire. Even still, the Pakistanis did not see that the only firefights they were engaging in were around the area of the Jalalabad Valley, or generally the Khyber Pass. On further down in the border and directly inside of the Balochistan region, we were able to see that Afghan convoys were moving on the way into the area, which we could see in this clip right here. We'll mute the audio, but we could see a large amount of U.S. Humvee light transports, as well as some armored cars as well in some different parts of the clip, as they were moving towards their area of the Balochistan border that they share with Pakistan. A fairly significant
and this footage right here does prove that the Taliban is using American equipment, and this had to most likely come from Bagram, because this was one of the main vehicles that was left behind at Bagram were these Humvees, and most of the time these weren't even scuttled because it was considered to be a very low priority piece of equipment. And while they did try to smash a bunch of avionics and left behind helicopters and things like that, they really didn't spend too much time trying to destroy the Humvees. So whatever was left at Bagram, I think this is proof that it's definitely being used. But the question is, how much do they truly have, and also how much ammunition was left behind for the Taliban?
It's a very interesting sort of a question to ask, and we also saw in the meantime that firefights were still breaking out inside of Balochistan. This is one of the few clips we actually got of a Pakistani gush gun or some sort of an autocannon firing towards the direction of the Afghan side of the border. Here's that footage. We hear them giving out orders, and they continue to fire the autocannon. Moving on into more footage that we got out of this area of the border, we also saw that the Afghans, crazily enough, conducted a raid into Pakistan. Now, this is the part where it actually became an armed invasion of Pakistan, if y'all were ever wondering, well, where is that footage to prove that there was some sort of an armed invasion? This is actually the footage here. From what we understand, this is some form of, or equivalent, at least for the Taliban, of a Taliban Special Forces and Raids unit, which is supposed to be able to conduct deep penetration raids into enemy territory and conduct some sort of successful mission or operation. Crazily enough, it appears they actually did complete some sort of a successful operation into Pakistan. We can see them here geared up, this guy carrying what appears to be some sort of recoilless rifle or RPG rounds inside of an RPG or a recoilless rifle ammunition sack on his back, as they now make it out of this facility. and on into the darkness. We can also see here an RPG-7, some absolutely spray-painted AKs, and we can also see them wearing a good bit of tactical gear. We can now see them showing off their ammunition as they're preparing for the raid. This guy's got his around him like Rambo.
That ammunition right there will probably last a total of probably like 10 seconds of the raid they're firing.
Man, for U.S. Special Forces, that's at least 2 months of ammo. For the Taliban, that's like 2 seconds, like maybe at best.
Jeez, man. I tell you what, zero impulse control when it comes to ammo. It's wild.
Also, we could see them here, apparently chit-chatting with the civilian population. This guy directly flagging the cameraman proudly. Look, he smiled and then aimed the barrel right at the cameraman's gut. Always a good thing to know that the Special Forces do not know barrel control. Good thing to know. We also saw them here with whatever sorts of rounds. Those might actually have been explosive charges. Maybe an equivalent of a larger PVC pipe bomb that they're carrying around. A lot of them, as a matter of fact. I've never seen anything like that, actually, folks. I don't know what that is. Maybe their version of a Bangalore. Maybe that's what that's supposed to be. Anyways, they get on to traveling through the night, putting on the high beams, actually, like blinding everyone down the street. And now they're on their merry little way to conduct the raid.
I love how they always use their hazard lights. Like, it's always funny how in these, like, for example, Pakistan, Afghanistan, no matter how dangerous the situation is, they will always put on their vehicular hazards every single time.
You always have to, Matthew. You always have to. Otherwise, dangerous and unfortunate incidents could happen beyond war itself. And off they go. From what we're hearing, by the way, folks, this raid actually went successfully, and they returned with around 7 to 8 Pakistani soldiers taken hostage, or generally prisoner, by the Afghan forces. This means at this moment, if we were to take that statement as fact, which we're, of course, not able to because we don't have video or picture evidence of these prisoners, that would mean, if this is true, that the Afghans now have about 7 to 8 Pakistani hostages under their control. So that may start to create a larger situation that will go on for a much longer period of time. In the meantime, we also saw, or heard more so, that the Pakistani Air Forces were continuing to conduct airstrikes on Taliban positions in the Bahramshah district of the Helmand province in Afghanistan, deep inside of the south. It actually is right here, directly along the border. Still, we were also able to hear other statements by the Afghan and Pakistani authorities, including the statement that, according to the Afghan Ministry of Defense, they stated that Afghanistan had launched an attack on Pakistan from seven different border locations, and that was according to a statement given by Al Jazeera. Several hours ago, we also were able to hear that the Afghan government announced that it had ended its retaliatory operation against Pakistan and warned of a strong response if Pakistan violates Afghan borders again. In the meantime, the Pakistani government has also stated that they are now in contact with the Taliban, but according to reports, Pakistan has not yet agreed to any sort of a ceasefire, leaving open the possibility for this conflict or border war it's now turned into at this point to continue on for days, if not weeks, if no quick resolution is reached between the two groups. A lot of people have been talking in the chat right now about these sorts of developments that we've been seeing today in between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And I've got to be honest with y'all, folks. I just did not expect this to happen. I'll be honest with y'all, that's a statement we're getting really familiar with saying these days, because there are a lot of small situations nowadays that would generally remain small historically that get blown up into full-blown border wars or actual wars themselves, and do not remain at a small border skirmish sort of a level, which is a historically common sort of a thing to see. This is not a historic commonality. This is a historic enigma for the large part, what we're seeing at the moment. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so this certainly caught me off guard as well. I was not expecting this. Last night when we covered this whole situation, it appeared to be that Pakistan was warning the Taliban not to do anything else aggressing toward Pakistani as in their territory. But now we're seeing that today, the Taliban has launched a full attack along the entire Pakistani border, which I was not expecting personally. So now that we've seen these huge attacks, and obviously they are massive, you see the amount of ammunition being used is wild, as a war now begun. And it looks like 43% said yes, a major war has now begun and it's now in motion, while 32% said no, these skirmishes will end very quickly on the border, and 16% said I'm 50-50 about this. And I'll be honest, these attacks launched by the Taliban, this is no small issue right here. This is a very large issue and very extensive attacks. It looks like the Taliban actually strategically hit all 7 major border posts that the Pakistanis had. So I don't know. To me, it seems like a very clear act of war. This is much bigger than a border skirmish, in my personal opinion. And so far, Pakistan has not agreed to stand down. And it looks like Pakistan's saying that they will respond to it in some way or another. And they've already done that through limited airstrikes. But I think it could be larger than that. And also, I can't help but bring this up. This is a piece of speculation right here. Recall that the U.S. recently made statements indicating they wanted Bagram Air Base back. And also, there was a recent security pact that was just signed. I can't remember. It was Pakistan and someone else. Who was it, Enforcer? Remind me real quick. There was a pretty big peace pact.
In what situation in particular?
There was a big security guarantee that was given it was involving Pakistan. I can't remember who the other side was. Do you recall who that was? China, you say, gave them a security guarantee?
Yeah, the Chinese have actually given Pakistan a security guarantee.
All right, well, in that case, then that is also happening after that security guarantee was given. And also, I'd forgotten it was China. I thought it was somebody else. But yeah, Pakistan now has a security guarantee. So we'll have to see how this turns out. To me, it seems like a war might have begun. I'm with the 42%. I don't think these are skirmishes, personally. But Enforcer, what say you?
Oh, I see a lot of people saying this in chat. Sorry. China has a security guarantee with Pakistan. Saudi Arabia and Pakistan are in a collective defense alliance. I think that might be what you're talking about. Yeah, so...
Yeah, that's it. It's Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, so just to clarify, folks, because you were talking about security guarantee, China has given Pakistan a security guarantee in the prior Pakistan-India border war, and that security guarantee, from what we largely know, still stands. But Pakistan is also in a defensive alliance with Saudi Arabia as well, and that just currently happened about a month ago at this point. But outside of that, I would have to say that, in my opinion, I would believe that a major war generally may be beginning right now at the moment between Pakistan and Afghanistan. A lot of people are saying this, and this is true, that Pakistan is a nuclear power, and that is without a doubt a verifiable fact. The issue, however, is that this does not stop two parties from going at it. Ukraine is not a nuclear power, yet Russia is, and they've been in a full-blown war for 3.5 years. So it is entirely possible for a country like the Taliban to actually escalate the situation into a full-blown conflict and then see the Pakistanis respond, which may have actually happened as of today. If the Pakistanis decide to respond in any major form tomorrow to the Afghans, and then this continues as a tit-for-tat well on into the future, this is elevated as of today into a full-blown border war as of right now. This does not mean that either side is going to envelop and swallow the other and it's going to become, either all Afghanistan. That would never happen. Pakistan would just nuke them. Or it would become all Pakistan. That's not going to happen. But one thing is for certain, we are going to see a major conflict most likely breaking out within this area as a direct result of this action, which is also incredibly odd. And I just saw a great question from Independent Peach 2024 in the chat who said, how does this affect BRICS? That's a brilliant question, actually, because this is actually a very interesting sort of situation, especially for BRICS. As many of y'all will know, neither Afghanistan nor Pakistan is a member of BRICS, but China is, and China is the single most important member of the entirety of the BRICS alliance, by far more important than the other 4 BRICS members combined, and still there is a lot of room to spare. China is still continuing to work on their One Belt, One Road program, as many of y'all will know, and the One Road part of the One Belt, One Road program is the Afghanistan-Pakistan corridor. China is hoping to generally bring a large amount of the Central Asian countries, including Afghanistan and Pakistan, into their sphere of influence and maintain a peaceful situation within the area, so that way China can support and operate a significant land transportation corridor from Western China all the way through Central Asia, either through Kazakhstan and the Stan Series countries, or through Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iran, and on into the region of Europe, tapping into the European market by a land transportation route, as well as the Belt, which is the naval transportation route, or the maritime routes. This area is quite important for that matter for China. Both parties, as a matter of fact, Afghanistan and Pakistan, are incredibly important to China's One Belt, One Road program. The issue with this, at least with this firefight breaking out and its impact on that sort of a program, is that China has to be able to walk a fine line in not pissing off Pakistan and also not pissing off the Taliban, and try and see if they can get the conflict to subside to some degree and try and slow the whole deal down. If they do not do that successfully and they end up offending one side or the other, they might set back their One Belt, One Road program significantly, considering that one of these countries will most likely not be that vehement about pursuing that. Even if it meant economic progress for them, they would still view the Chinese as something of a possible adversary, or a actual adversary, due to Chinese involvement in the situation. So while it does not affect BRICS as a whole alliance, it affects the most important member of BRICS, which is the People's Republic of China. So we'll generally have to see how that goes, but I would have to be honest with y'all folks, I would also be with a large percentage of people here. I'm thinking that this might end up being a full-blown border war in effect as of today. But moving on from that, a lot of people are also wondering what in the world is leading to this. And I did explain earlier, folks, about the build-up to this over the past year, about the Balochistanis inside of the south, and how they pretty much conduct operations on both sides of the borders. And because the Pakistanis are so vehement in trying to track these people down and pretty much kill them, they've gotten into firefights with the Taliban, trying to chase them into Afghanistan. A lot of people are talking about if there is something else more to this. Someone that's outside of the situation prodding these two groups to get them into this full-blown sort of a border war that we're seeing today. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that possibility, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So right now we have nothing concrete. I want to make that clear from the start. Anything that we're saying about our opinions on foreign prodding, it is solely our opinion, and we have nothing concrete about it. That's the disclaimer before we get into this poll. But the question says, do you believe any foreign prodding may have sparked the new Pakistan-Afghan conflict? Because the timing does seem a little bit odd, I will admit. But it looks like 34% said Russia, China, or India might have prodded them to start this conflict, while 29% said, I think it naturally started through Pakistan and Afghan tensions, and 24% said the USA might have actually prodded those. So the interesting parts here, these are the two red flags that I see that indicate there may be some foreign prodding, because number one, Afghanistan is home to Bagram Air Base, and currently the USA wants to take that back. So there is a little connection there, but also at the same time, we did see that security, that mutual defense pact just get signed between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, and that's also another red flag. So this happened literally right after those two events took place, and now we're seeing a major conflict break out between Pakistan and the Taliban in Afghanistan. So I believe some prodding might have been involved in it, but at the same time, though, we have nothing concrete. So all we can say is it looks a little suspicious, but we'll have to wait and see what more evidence comes out about it before we reach any concrete conclusions. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my opinion, I think that someone from Russia, China, or India may be prodding Afghanistan into these sorts of actions, government of a sort, because that would make a decent amount of sense, especially when we talk about the situation with India and Pakistan. India and Pakistan do have incredibly hostile relations at the moment due to the, let's see, what is the name of that place? The Polygram terror attack, which occurred earlier this year, and that led to a full-blown border war between Pakistan and India as a result of that action, and also the cessation of the Indus water treaties, which is vital for Pakistan to be able to get access to 90% of its water. Without that treaty in effect, Pakistan will be losing 90% of the flow of water inside their country, which is significant. The Indians would want to see Pakistan eventually erode itself, and there have been some very strong claims laid out by the Pakistani government over the years that the Republic of India, as well as the Islamic Republic of Iran, have both been in some elements trying to support and fund the Balochistani independence movement within Pakistan to further destabilize the southern regions of the country and to also cause civil dissent and civil unrest throughout the nation of Pakistan. That is a pretty interesting claim to consider, given the fact that this, if we were to look at this at face value, is the reason why the conflict has started between Afghanistan and Pakistan, is because Pakistan has been trying to chase members of the Balochistani independence movement across the Afghan border, and in the process of that, they have been getting in firefights with the Taliban, which are attempting to defend the sovereign interests of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, which is now the ruling government of the country. So you could say, in a sense, if those Pakistani claims were true or are true, and they have any clear proof to show that, that India may be the one that's in a indirect sort of a sense actually prodded the situation into a full-blown conflict between the Afghans and the Pakistanis. So I'd actually have to say I'm with the 31%. I believe that it's actually more so the Indians that may have prodded this sort of an incident, if anyone has. And if it wasn't that, I would generally say that this is a natural sort of a development between the two because of the Balochistan independence movement with the terrorist force that is inside the southern part of Pakistan and Afghanistan as well. Regardless.
Also, take a look at the secondary theory right here. And once again, it's all speculation, so take it with a grain of salt. But remember, if the U.S. wants to take Bagram Air Base, they're going to have a hard time getting back to Bagram to even hold it and take it in the first place, because the Taliban control the whole country, and that's a major problem. And nobody wants to reinvade Afghanistan to take Bagram back. I think there's very few people that want that, because it's going to take such a massive cost to simply get back an air base that we gave up voluntarily just years ago. So if the U.S. wanted to go take it back, it would be very advantageous for the Pakistanis to get into a war with the Afghan Taliban to weaken them. So that way, later on, if the Taliban get weakened enough, maybe it would be a lot easier for the U.S. to go back in and take Bagram. So that way, there wouldn't be much resistance to it. That's another theory right there. And also, keep this in mind, by the way, the Pakistani Prime Minister just visited the United States just weeks ago. That literally just happened. He met with the top officials in the United States. So not saying they discussed starting a war with Pakistan, although it is possible. We don't know that for a certainty. So it would be advantageous, but right now it's hard to tell.
I would have to say it is a very hard thing to tell if anyone's even involved in this at all externally. But if I had to say, if a finger had to be pointed and someone is responsible for prodding this into a conflict, I would say that the highest chances out of any involved party would definitely be India. China would not want this to happen. I would say that China is almost completely out of this. They would not want to prod the Taliban and the Pakistanis to go at it, because that's going to start compromising the One Belt, One Road program, which passes directly through that area. And Russia wouldn't want to prod it on, because generally they've been trying to court the Taliban as a party of interest inside of Russia. And on top of that, the Russian Federation also tries to keep up at least some form of indifferent relations with the Pakistanis. So they also really wouldn't have any real reason to try and prod the Afghans. The Indians actually have a somewhat larger relationship with the Afghans. Funnily enough, they actually have a partnership trade agreement, a PTA, between them and Afghanistan. And not only that, there is still the Pakistani claim, if we were to take it at face value, that the Indians are attempting to supply and fund the Balochistan independence movement, a terrorist force, which exists inside of southern Afghanistan and Pakistan. If we take all that together and just even consider it as possibly true, India is the most likely culprit for the reasons behind this border war that we're seeing right now. But once again, that's largely based off an assumption, and we don't have enough proof to be able to say that with 100% certainty. But still, moving on from this situation, it is making things quite hairy within the area. And before we even move on, I do want to give a little bit of a monologue myself on this situation. I've got to be honest with y'all, folks. I think y'all are living through some of the most interesting times that we will see within this century, at least for now. Hopefully that will remain the case, because the world is on fire. Like, I'm not even exaggerating this point. When we first started running news on this channel, it was pretty much the Ukraine war only. And I cannot even begin to count how many conflicts we have reported on that have started and finished within the course of the 3.5, well, almost 4 years that we've been on air at this point here on the channel. It has been an insane amount of them, and a lot of them don't even have really any sense. I would be honest with y'all, over this year, some of the conflicts that have started up and ended that have made the least amount of sense would be the Thailand-Cambodia border war, and now the Afghanistan-Pakistan border war, and the Pakistan-India border war as well. None of those have made any sense at all as to why they escalated that rapidly and that violently into a full-blown war, which, at least in Thailand and Cambodia, costs hundreds of lives. In Pakistan and India, it also costs hundreds of lives, and we're assuming that the Afghanistan-Pakistan conflict is most likely also going to be costing hundreds, if not thousands, of lives as well. It is an incredibly unstable time in terms of foreign policy around the world right now, And I would also have to say that that's a very strong argument for the reason why, here in the West, we need to make sure to unify as much as we possibly can. We do not want to create any dissent that will start to separate the Western sphere, because we are going through, in a figurative sense, incredibly rough seas. And you never want the ship to split in two while you're traveling through rough seas, because both sides of the ship are going to sink together, and you're on board that very ship. So I think that we should be taking the lesson from the greater outside world that isn't a direct part of the Western sphere, that the Western sphere needs to stay as unified and connected together, because at least through that action alone, we can maintain peace within our region of the world, our sphere of influence in the world, while the rest of it is clearly on fire at the moment, and there are wars popping up literally anywhere and everywhere across the entirety of the globe. But
And
moving
the wild part is as well. It's true. The world truly is on fire right now, and there's wars popping up everywhere. But we're not even able to cover all the small stuff happening. Like what we're covering is the big ticket items, like the things that most people are concerned about, like Pakistan, India, Afghanistan. We got these big ones going on, but there's also a lot of small stuff happening too that we're not able to cover. Like for example, I saw some rumors a couple hours ago that there might be an attempted coup in Madagascar, and that's just like one of the many things that's possibly going on right now. So it seems like there's just craziness going on everywhere. Like even in places that we're not able to cover, it's breaking out. Government issues, economic issues, wars starting. It's truly a tumultuous time, and that's a new thing.
Yeah, I've got to be honest with y'all. This is, I would say, folks, that what this could be compared to would be the 1930s in terms of instability. It's never, I cannot think of a period where it's ever been this bad except for the 1930s. Because in the 1930s, there was an endless amount of wars going on around the world. A lot of them would start and finish without any real rhyme or reason. And also on top of that, given that fact, y'all all know that we've been talking about the Russians are going to economically collapse and China's in rough economic times. That is also even extending at this point into our Western sphere. The United States is going through some fairly difficult economic times at the moment right now, and a lot of European countries are also largely moving through some economic difficulties as well. It's an incredibly difficult period historically that we're working through right now. Hopefully we can manage it successfully and get on through it like we have in prior eras before, like the 1930s. But it is a really crazy sort of a time to be in. But beyond that, it is time for us to move on out of Afghanistan and Pakistan and bring y'all to something that I'm going to attach to this segment inside of North Korea. We were able to get footage from the Korean People's Propaganda and Agitation Department, the PAD, of the military parade that was conducted in Pyongyang last night. Generally, I would not show military parades on this channel because I usually find them to be of little substance or value, and there really isn't a lot to be gained out of most of them, just to be completely frank with you all. It's really a way to see some military equipment and units on parade in their best condition, with their finest uniforms on, being the cleanest, marching the best formation. There usually isn't a lot to be able to really learn or reap from that sort of a deal. But down here at the Kim Il-sung Square in front of the Grand People's Study House, they did hold a major nighttime parade inside of North Korea last night, and we were able to get two fairly important or interesting developments from that situation, or generally the parade, through the course of the night. And this is what we were able to see. First off, also, someone said the KCNA. The KCNA is the news agency in North Korea, the state news agency that publishes all that information, but it is a subordinate department to the Korean People's Agitation Department, well, the Propaganda and Agitation Department, the PAD, which runs all media and all forms of art and literature inside of North Korea. So it's more so a subordination of the PAD. But beyond that, we were able to see, first off, a North Korean ICBM TEL for the Hwasong 20. I'm going to turn down the audio and just show you all the footage here that was published by the North Koreans, because this is an incredibly similar launcher to the T'Pol M, and we are generally assuming that the North Koreans have been provided some sort of technology or ability to pretty much reverse engineer a T'Pol M TEL and produce their own variant. It is distinct and independently different from a T'Pol M TEL, but it also shares a lot of similar features, including its incredibly long wheelbase.
Fun fact about this vehicle right here. If this thing ever runs over like a pile of nails on the road, it could literally bankrupt the entire country of North Korea with all those tires that it has to replace. Like, seriously, can you imagine the cost of just one row of those tires? That is crazy expensive.
Also, they need to replace the filters on that thing because that thing is smoking like a steam train going down this way. He's also looking
Oh,
fairly
boy.
fat. Like honestly.
He's wondering if it's made of cake.
Bro, he's about to eat it. Man, bro, that's about the size of the cake they have to feed him. And here's the other Hwasong 20 TEL that they also have.
Also, is that thing supposed to be an off-roader, by the way? Because how can this thing off-road with such a length to it like that? Like it would seem like it really couldn't get over anything.
Generally, they're actually not off-roaders. They're supposed to be operated off of highways and paved roads, and then they fire from a position that's right off that roadway. But by that point, it doesn't really matter if the vehicle is recoverable or not once it gets to its firing position, because once it's fired, its duty is largely over. It cannot reload at that point, because it would be in the midst of a nuclear exchange. So it's not really supposed to go off-road. The giant wheelbase is actually there, so that way the load is distributed across all of the axes, or the axes of the vehicle, so that way it doesn't pretty much crush the roads that are underneath it.
Also, by the way, I think it has multi-wheel steering, by the way. I see some people saying, well, how the hell does it turn? I think a lot of the wheels turn together. So I think the front four axles all turn when the vehicle turns. So it gives it a bit of a better turning radius to it, if I'm not mistaken, because otherwise this thing would literally not be able to turn.
Yeah, it actually does have independent steering on each wheel axis, or at least the front four and I think the rear three, and then the middle four I think are largely stationary, or they have a very limited form of traverse. But also, I got to ask y'all this. I was wanting to get to this right here. What kind of spotlights do they have these people under? Every single one of them looks like they just got out of a shower. Like, they are sweating profusely out here. How bright and how hot are the lights that they're under for this camera to be filming them? It's got to be insane. Like, look at everyone's hair. It's like all matted and wet. Every single one of them is sweating to death out here.
That's the effect of the great Grand Marshal Kim Jong-un. When he looks at you, you instantly get wet hair because you're sweating so bad.
Man, and they also got all their crappy, I don't know what those things are called. Like, they're the North Korean version of like an iPhone. They're really bad though. Someone actually got one and they are terrible. But we also saw them here continuing to drive the Hwasong 20 TELs through. While in the meantime, they also have their World War II era ceremonial guns over here. Real difference between those TELs and those older artillery pieces.
I think it is raining out here, by the way. I see people saying that. I think that people might have gotten soaked by the rain a little bit. But of course, that's the rain from Mount Pektu. It's that blessed rain.
It's the blessed rain of the heroes of Mount Pektu. Also, it is raining because the entire street is slick with that rainwater. But they weren't going to cancel no parade, damn it. They don't care rain, sleet, snow, or hail. This is for the great leader. We also saw this as well, and I have to play the audio on this one, folks, because this was very interesting. This unit right here that I'm about to show y'all, this is the unit, quote unquote, we don't know if it's true or not, that supposedly served as a part of the North Korean Expeditionary Force as a part of the Russian Federation's armed forces in the Battle of Kursk. As many of y'all will know, that unit was largely destroyed in combat, and we understand that it took around 60% casualties, wounded and killed, and most of the unit did not survive the several months that it was actually on the front line in Kursk. Reports from the Russians, every report from the Russians stated that the North Korean units suffered heavy losses and were largely incompetent as actual fighting field units, and they were quickly pulled off the lawn by the Russians after 2 months and 60% casualty rates. Nevertheless, the North Koreans have lauded this unit as heroic and legendary, and have stated that this unit not only took very little losses, but also inflicted significant losses onto the Ukrainians and the greater American imperialist bastard dogs, or however the North Koreans put it. Now, what is interesting is that they're about to march past, and I have to play the audio for y'all here, and then I'll tell y'all what it is, but here is the clip as it was shown.
I will admit they're marching as on the
Yeah, they torture these people to get them to march like this. But beyond that, this is the only part of the unit that they showed. Actually, I want you all to notice that they sent over about an entire infantry regiment, which is about I think it's like 13,000 strong if I remember correctly. And this is all that they showed of them when they got back. Now, something that's a little bit interesting is if you listen to the music in the background, it was a specific song that is incredibly famous inside of Russia, especially within patriotic circles. And this is where my innate knowledge of military music globally comes into play. The music that they played in the background as they were marching was, in its English title, the song To Serve Russia. So they're playing a song that talks about how great it is to serve Russia while they're marching in a North Korean parade, lauding the greatness of the great leader in North Korea. The music pick could not have been worse, at least for their Juche ideology, considering that it's strong self-reliance in North Korea and North Koreans are the greatest people alive on the planet. And then they play a song that is the most pro-Russian song imaginable about how serving Russia and dying for Russia is the greatest thing imaginable on the planet, and it's better than anything else in the world. No joke.
Oh,
That's
you
the
haven't
song.
heard. You haven't heard that the Ministry of Education has recently discovered that Sir Vladimir Putin was actually also born on the top of Mount Pektu as the lightning struck the tip of the mountain. So therefore, he is as good as Kim Jong-un in the eyes of the people. Honestly, isn't this sick? Like, they can literally superimpose any type of leader they want to be the leader of the society. It's literally set up like to be that true of a cult. They can say, okay, today it's Kim Jong-un they're fighting for the North Korean society. Now tomorrow it's the Russians. So we need to be Russian mercenaries. Now we're fighting for Vladimir Putin. It's just interchangeable completely.
Now, you know what's funny, though, Matthew, is that the real origin story of Kim Jong-il, Kim Il-sung didn't get a cool story like that. He was just like a resistance fighter and all that. But Kim Jong-il, who was the second Kim in Korea, he got this crazy story, folks, about how he was born. He was born on the hillside, or the mountainside, of Mount Pektu. They actually have a little fake house around here. I think it's actually this one. That he was supposedly born in and lived in. Truth is, he was born somewhere inside of outer Manchuria in Russia, but that's beyond the point. Nevertheless, he was supposedly born, according to North Korean myth, on the footsteps of Mount Pektu under a double rainbow, and the very moment that he was born, a new bright star appeared in the night sky. No joke, that's the story that they tell. Somehow, the minute he was born, a new star appeared in the sky, which is completely counterintuitive to the whole double rainbow thing, because to see a double rainbow, it has to be broad daylight. So either a new star appeared in the sky, which didn't happen, or there was a double rainbow without the star, which also didn't happen either. So it's like, that whole story doesn't even make any sense when you actually hear it. It's like, how the hell could there have been a double rainbow and a new star at the same time, considering it would have had to have been broad daylight or the dark at night, and one couldn't have happened with the other simultaneously?
Well, that's why you don't question the Ministry of Education. You simply go with what you're told.
That's why, folks, I would be in Camp 14. Like right now, if I was in North Korea, I would be in the concentration camp with everyone else because I question Juche ideology. No joke, that's actually how it works in North Korea. If I asked a question like that there, that is literally a anti-Juche or anti-revolutionary thought, and that is the most dangerous crime that you can actually conduct inside of North Korea. A lot of people have actually gone to death camps, far less in North Korea, and if I remember correctly, just to remind you all the kind of country that this is, right up around, yeah, here we go, Camp 14. This is the one camp in North Korea that actually houses the children of those criminals of a sort, because in North Korea they have a legal standing called guilt by association, meaning that you don't have to be responsible for a crime to go to prison. If any one of your family members, even if they are a third removed cousin, commits a crime, you can go to a death camp on their behalf if they are not able to be found, or even if they are found, you'll still go to a prison camp because of guilt by association. And you can end up here, and it's a bad place. Those are the houses that the prisoners live in inside of this prison camp.
Jeez, man, honestly, this is a good motivation to keep Unk in line. Like if you live in North Korea, you can't let Unk go crazy on the weekend because that could land you right here in Camp 14, which is pretty messed up looking.
Yeah, on top of that, folks, I was actually listening to some stories from survivors. There are very few survivors or escapees from these forms of political prison camps, but I believe there's actually been about 3 escapees that have successfully escaped in the past. Camp 14. Some of them live in South Korea, some of them live here in the United States, but they were telling their stories of what it was like in these prison camps, and it is absolutely terrible. I mean, it's a horrible place. Like, for example, one story, because I want to kind of remind you all of the kind of countries we're up against out here, because we always talk about how they're bad people. Let me give you a story from one of these defectors about how bad it is. One of them actually was pretty much born almost, well, he was like, I think 4 or 5 years old when his whole family was taken to one of these prison camps. So he grew up here. Actually, no, correction. He was born in the prison camp because his mom and dad were actually forced into a marriage as a reward for hard service in the camp. He was born in the camp and grew up there, and when he was about, I think it was something along the lines of 5 or 7 years old, a girl inside of this school right here, this is the school that the children go to, was found to have 5 grains of rice inside of her pocket when she was in the school. The teacher then went to beating her over the head until he killed the girl, right there in the middle of the class in front of everyone, because she had conducted the crime of stealing food, and stealing food was to be subject to immediate execution. And that's a story that defector told after he had escaped. There were a load of other stories like that he had told, but that's to remind you the kind of people that you're going up against in some of these governments, like the North Korean government that runs this country, are people that would execute a child because they had 5 grains of rice inside of their pocket when they arrived to school after pretty much literally slaving away on the rice fields all day, and then showing up to school the next day after working for 16 straight hours at about 7 years old. Just to remind you all the kind of people that the United States, or generally the Western world, is up against in these sorts of regions. But anyways, with that, moving on out of North Korea and on out of that information, out of the capital of Pyongyang, we do have other news and fairly significant developments that have come out of other regions of the world. And before we move on into that, particularly that of Europe, as major developments have come out of that region today, we are going to be making sure to get a couple of questions from the chat, because a lot of y'all have been here tonight. We have had a peak viewership tonight of 17.7 thousand people. That is a lot of people who have been here tonight. And I got to thank you all so much for listening to the news so far. I hope you all been enjoying it a great deal. And not only that, about 85,000 people have been here within the first hour. I got to say that we're entirely honored and greatly appreciative to have had all of y'all here so far. And if y'all have been enjoying, please make sure to subscribe, because we cover news like this 6 days a week, every day but Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, covering the past 24 hours of news from around the entirety of the world. So please make sure to subscribe if you are enjoying the channel. And of course, we're going to take a quick little moment to get to talk to a couple of y'all. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our first 3 super chat questions and then getting right back to our news after we cover those. Our first one here goes to Sylvester the Cat, a longtime channel legend, by the way, who put in a very generous $121 support, and by far the largest support of the night. And thank you very much, Sylvester, for helping to keep us on the air. And Sylvester said, "Hello, Matt and Enforcer. The Rasputitsa will arrive soon, but the Russian and Ukrainian offensives have yet to occur, I think. And is there still time? And also, Lee Spring Tanker since week 1 and always watching."
And thank you for being a Lee Spring Tanker since week 1. You old guard, Sylvester. You've been around for an incredibly long time, and we thank you so much for still being here with us and always watching. And I gotta say that generally, I'm doubting that major Ukrainian or Russian offensives will start at any point this year due to the Rasputitsa largely arriving at this point, or it's soon to arrive. So if they start a new offensive right now, especially considering how long these offensives gruel on, this offensive will start and then pretty much immediately find itself in the Rasputitsa here in about a couple of weeks. So I would generally doubt that they're going to be starting any new offensives now. And after the Rasputitsa ends, that's generally because of the freeze that then comes in the winter. And usually we see that there's a decrease in frontline activities during the winter because of the harsh weather and temperatures. And for that reason, it greatly reduces the activity of the armed forces, as they're generally just trying to bundle up and stay warm inside of some sort of a trench. That's usually when we'll see that drone activity is taking the most losses on the front line. And also there will be be a decreased amount of offensive activity, or if offensive activities are taken, they will still be smaller in scope, considering the harsher elements that would persist through the winter months. So I would generally assume, Sylvester, I do not think that we're going to be seeing any major offensives of any sort throughout the remainder of this year. The Russians are technically engaged in their Zaporizhia offensive just south of Pokrovsk, which doesn't really seem to be going anywhere. We're not really seeing them take much ground at all, and that will most likely fizzle out by the time of the Rasputitsa, and then nothing else will really pick up from that point on. But still, a humongous thanks to you for the incredibly massive support, and I hope I was able to give a good answer to that question as to generally why I wouldn't see any sort of major offenses breaking out, at least at this point, from here on into the future. And an incredible thanks to you so much once again for being a Leaf Spring Army tanker. I don't know why I'm messing up English tonight sometimes, folks. It's not like it's my first language or anything. I was born speaking English, but a massive thanks to you so much for enjoying this channel tonight. And thank you so much for supporting it and being an old guard and a Leaf Spring Army tanker since week 1. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our second super chat of the night goes to Bobby43, also known as LC39A, by the way, and he put in a 50 Canadian. And thank you very much, Bobby, for that support all the way from Canada, and also being a longtime channel legend as well. And he said, Bobby43 is present.
Hey, it's great to have you here, Bobby43, or formerly LC39A. And I got to thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running and being here with us tonight and letting us know. I got to thank you incredibly. Because folks like you, with your support, you help us to be able to eat. Not like Kim Jong-un eats. I don't think anyone can eat like that. But you help us to eat and keep the lights on. And I got to thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would not be able to keep this channel possible and make this thing a reality every single day. So humongous thanks to you so much once again. And before we move on to the next one, I actually saw someone ask a great question. Uog in the chat said, what's a Rasputitsa? This is a word that we haven't flung around in a while, so that's actually a great question. The Rasputitsa is a special season that exists within the eastern regions of Europe for the large part. And let me show you what a Rasputitsa generally kind of looks like. Let me see here. Yes, here we are. The Nazi Germans dealing with the Rasputitsa in the spring of 1942. Basically, because of how the soil exists in Eastern Europe, there is a time where the soil takes on a great amount of moisture, and generally that's because of a thaw that happens every single year. In the winter around here, the ground will mostly freeze, or at least freeze kind of in a sense. And once the spring comes around, or the fall, which is generally the monsoon season in this area, it starts to bring a lot of water into the ground, which creates, because of the soil composition in this area, what is pretty much quicksand or quicksink sorts of mud throughout the entirety of Eastern Europe. It is pretty much impossible for tanks to be able to get through it. You can actually see here in the earlier part of the war, a Russian tank that literally almost was buried halfway inside of Rasputitsa mud in the Kharkiv Oblast. And also you can see multiple historical examples of that, like on this village street near Moscow in 1941, and also through multiple other historical periods. Here's a picture of Rasputitsa mud on a normal street in Sokol, Russia, in just a normal city in 2012. So generally, that's what the Rasputitsa is. And because of this incredibly difficult sort of ground condition that exists in Europe, especially during the latter parts of the fall and also the spring, that generally stops most offensive actions because you're not able to emphasize any form of armored doctrine properly. For an armored doctrine to work, like with these sorts of main battle tanks, you have to be able to break off of a paved road and generally spread out into a wider formation, which allows for you to get more fire onto the target because everyone's not stacked up right behind each other in a neat little row like ducks. The problem is, however, is that if you ever go off the road, you end up running into a Rasputitsa like this and you get bogged down immediately, which then pretty much leads you to have to abandon the vehicle and it will eventually be destroyed. So that's generally what stopped offensives historically from happening in the fall and the spring, is this extreme sort of a ground condition that exists in this area because of Rasputitsas. So that's in short what a Rasputitsa is. It's just pretty much the ground turning into quicksand for the greater part. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well for those folks who may have never heard that word before. And with that, we are now on to the final question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the rest of the news.
All right, and the last one of the segment goes to Marion Deemer, also another longtime channel legend. And thank you very much, Marion, for that $50 support and also helping to keep the channel going bigly. And Marion said, Slava Ukraine, Herum Slava, and also hide.
Oh, hide? What's going on? Why do we need hide? But beyond that, I got to thank you massively for the support, Marion Dimmer. You are an old guard and a channel legend as well, and I got to thank you incredibly for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't have been able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep this thing rolling well into the future. And I got to thank everyone massively for watching tonight, and also the folks for supporting, because all of y'all give us the inspiration and the encouragement to keep this channel running by all of y'all watching and finding a great deal of value out of it. And also the folks who support this channel help us to be able to eat, pay our bills, and do everything else to be able to keep doing this as a full-time job and make a living doing it. So I got to thank you massively for that, Marion Deemer, and I got to thank all of y'all here tonight for watching the show as well, whether you're supporting or not, because each and every single one of y'all is incredibly important to us here on the channel, and we are highly honored that a lot of y'all are spending your time here by the hour load watching this news and getting a great deal of information out of it. So humongous thanks to you so much once again, Marion Deemer. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. And so with that, folks, it's now time for us to move on into the rest of the news for the night. And moving us on up into the area of the Baltics, we were able to see a wild development near to the area of the Estonian border. Near to the Estonian border today, and specifically the border crossing near to the area of I think it was south of Narva, if I'm not mistaken, there was a wild occurrence that happened. We were able to see the little green men. This guy was busting it down Russian style.
Oh man, he's got his hands on his knees and everything. That's kind of wild right there. Honestly, like these guys look like a loose like group of maybe like, it's hard to tell, like not militia type, but something like maybe like some tactical people or something. It's hard to tell exactly who they are. They're saying they're Russian because obviously I think they're on the Russian side from what we can tell in the picture, but that's really weird. It almost seems like they wanted to be seen, like the way they're out in the middle of the road like that and so close to the border.
I would have to be honest with you. They are certainly not a militia, because the thing about gun ownership in Russia is that it is almost next to impossible to actually get access to any form of a semi-automatic gun, much less an automatic, which all of these guys appear to have the standard AKs, or AK-74s, or AK-12s at least, and they're also kitted out in a decent amount of military gear, which would generally lead us to believe that this is either a private military corporation, a PMC, or a mercenary group in Russia, which has also been outlawed and declared illegal, which makes that highly unlikely, or these are quote-unquote the little green men of the Russian army, a lot like we saw leading up to the Donbass conflict in 2014 and the annexation of Crimea. These were seen right across the border, by the way. This picture was taken by Estonian police and border guards, which have closed down the Satsy-Bud passage, which runs through Russia, as well as nearby border crossings in Estonia, after an unusually large presence of armed individuals, end quote, operating inside the area of the Satsy-Bud near the Estonian-Russian border. This is a very interesting sort of a situation, and this is also why we put it in the title that the Russian army is right along the Estonian border, because there really isn't any other group that it could highly likely be, rather than some element of the Russian army that is largely disguising itself as the little green men. As a matter of fact, crazily enough, these guys look a lot like the little green men from back in the day in 2014, and let me try and get y'all a picture of the little green men as they were remembered, and let me put in Ukraine so that way I'm not getting a whole bunch of pictures of aliens to pick from. So let me go do that. Here you are. Here's a picture of some of those little green men, and we now know without a doubt in the modern day that this was the Russian army that was inside of Crimea. These guys are dressed up and outfitted in the same sort of hodgepodge military gear that these guys are as well.
Honestly, that cheap like Temu looking gear, like the one guy's wearing like the bank robber like stereotypical ski mask over there on the left. Yeah, honestly, stereotypical thing right there. And also, it's like just random camouflage stuff. It's almost like hunting gear / tactical military gear that they got mixed up. But for everybody's reference, by the way, the little green men that were in Crimea, what was the point behind them, by the way? Like just to explain that to people.
So to explain to y'all what the story of the little green men is, back when the Russian Federation conducted their first invasion of Ukraine, they did not do it officially. And so they took a large part of the Russian army, well, inside of Crimea it was actually officially done, but in the Donbass, they took a large part of the Russian army, had them strip all of their insignia, and were given orders when they moved into Ukraine to state, if ever asked, where do you come from? We come from somewhere, or we come from here. Something along those lines, and to not say exactly where they were from. All insignia was removed, everything was removed so that way say, when people said it was the Russians, the Russian government would say that's an absolute unabased lie. We have never put any Russian forces inside of the Donbass, and we're not. The reason why they did that, having everyone remove their insignia and not say where they came from, was so that way the Russian Federation could pretty much make up the bulk of the quote-unquote rebels in the Donetsk People's Republic and Luhansk People's Republic through their armed forces without making it look like it was directly a Russian armed invasion, which is why if you ever go back and look at the 2014 to 2016 period where the fighting was the heaviest between the government of Ukraine and the quote-unquote rebels, you'll usually see that a lot of people would call these guys rebels from the DPR and the LPR and not the Russian army, is because there was no insignia on them to be able to say that they were from the Russian army. These guys are clearly from the Russian army. This is a tactic that has been done time and time again by the Russians, quite clearly in 2014, and any armed member, any armed citizen of the Russian Federation that is equipped entirely in military gear that is this hodgepodge, it doesn't take a lot at this point to deduce that this is definitely an element of the Russian army of some form.
Yeah, it certainly seems weird. And also, like, my thing is this, it's like, obviously we can't say for a concrete fact that this is the Russian army. It seems to be most likely it's the Russian army, but the fact these guys are standing out in the street, apparently very close to the border with Estonia, I'm not sure what citizens would have that kind of stupidity to do something like that, considering that pretty much everybody in Russia knows how high the tensions are between NATO and Russia. So why would they go lurk around the border with weapons? It appears they have weapons in their hands here and just sort of like stare at the Estonians. It seems like a clear intimidation tactic, and it really doesn't even seem like probing, in my opinion. It seems like intimidation, just so that way they're seen for some reason.
I would have to say that it's definitely some form of an intimidation tactic, but also, man, I understand a lot of people have been talking about that. And what are people thinking about that?
So it looks like about 48% of the audience said Russia is trying to scare and intimidate the Estonians by doing this in the middle of the street, while about 45% said Russia is probing the border again, and 2% said it might just be some random Russian citizens. So, like I said, it seems like intimidation. They would not be standing out in the street if they were trying to probe the border. So, whatever they're doing here, also, I don't know why the guy's throwing it back in that picture right there. I guess maybe he's like mocking them or something. Sort of an odd position there, sort of like a special twerking operation, I guess you could say. But it seems weird to me. And also, Estonia did the right thing by closing their border because nobody really knows why these guys were out here. And obviously, with Russia being on bad terms with NATO, very bad terms, you got to play it safe. So if this happens again, I think that'll be proof that it is probably the Russian military behind it, at least in my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
Man, this guy sat there and said, Special Military Operation SMO, more like Special Movement Operation, God forbid a white boy get a little motion, yada, 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 yada. Run, he started like twerking out there, honestly. But I would have to say, folks, I'm with the 50%. This is definitely a Russian intimidation tactic. Also for the fact, let me go pull up the gun ownership laws in Russia. Let's see, gun ownership laws, Russia. Let me go get that for y'all. Let's see here. You have to pass, this is everything you have to pass to get a firearm in Russia. You have to be 21 years old, and you have to pass background checks, medical exams, and gun safety courses to obtain a firearms license for purposes like hunting or sport. Applicants need to store firearms securely and first obtain a hunting ticket for smoothbore weapons. That's not a rifle. That's just something like a shotgun. With eligibility for rifles following 5 years of shotgun ownership. Carrying live ammunition, handguns is not allowed in public, but traumatic handguns for self-defense are permissible. So these guys,
I guess it could be airsoft guns, though. I mean, it could be airsoft, maybe. Those would be some pretty damn good-looking replicas if it was airsoft, but it could be airsoft.
I could be. I would doubt that, however, because it's that would create a security situation if a whole bunch of armed guys without approval just showed off with airsoft guns to troll the Estonians. Even the Russian border guards would be questioning what's going on with that. So I would have to say this is something that definitely. Also, the fact that the Russian border guards didn't respond to this, that's something that we haven't brought up until now. That has got to show us, Matthew, that this is something that was approved by the Russian government. There was a call that was made to that border checkpoint in that area. We're about to have a little armed, get-together, a little posse out in the street, so don't bother them because they're approved. And then they came out here and did this. So I would guarantee you these most likely are not airsoft. These are most likely live firearms. And on top of that, like I was just showing you with the firearm laws, it's incredibly difficult to get a gun in Russia. And then you can't even get a semi-automatic rifle. Like you have to, like the rifles that you were allowed to get in Russia as a private citizen are all bolt action. There are really no semi-automatics, rarely ever allowed. So all these guys have semi-automatics. An AK-12 right there. That appears to be another style of an AK rifle. This guy also has what appears to be a semi-automatic as well. All of them semi-automatic rifles. They got these, or they most likely are automatic assault rifles with actual select fire capabilities. So with that in mind, these guys, aren't just Russians who were like, you know what, let's go troll the Estonians. These guys definitely got these weapons from the Russian government. There really was no other way to get it, and were approved to be in this area of the border.
Maybe so, possibly. If it happens again, I would say the odds of that go up tremendously. But you're right, though. If the Russian border guards didn't respond to it, and also obviously it spooked the Estonians so much they closed the border. So if this was the extent of the guys, because also the Estonians mentioned that there was a large, unusual presence of armed individuals. So apparently the Estonians confirmed that they were armed with something. They didn't say if it was necessarily an automatic weapon or not, but they confirmed they were armed with something. And also, obviously, common sense tells you, why would people that were just merely airsofters or something like that, why would they hoard near the border and stare at the border guards? That wouldn't make much sense.
Yeah, I would have to say it's a little bit weird. Also, let me go pull up the percentage of gun owners in Russia. It is 5%. So only 5% of the Russian population owns a gun.
So this would have to be a pretty large percentage of gun owners here if they were just random Russians, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it would be. Also, what guns can a citizen own in Russia? Let me make sure that I'm correct, that they can't have a semi-automatic. Citizens can own various firearms after meeting specific requirements. Initially, ownership limited to smoothbore shotguns and pneumatic weapons. After 5 years, they can purchase rifles. Handguns are now allowed, but they can only be used for sports on private property, and they cannot be concealed in public. However, traumatic handguns, which fire rubber bullets, are permitted for public self-defense. Let's see here. Let's see, automatic rifle. So automatic and semi-automatic rifles appear to not be allowed, from what I'm finding online, for private ownership under any circumstances. So all these guns are not legal for a Russian citizen to own. So these could not be citizens with these rifles. They would be in violation of Russian federal law, and on top of that, they are within clear view of Russian law enforcement force, the Russian border guards.
Interesting.
So I would have to say, folks, that starts to narrow it down. It's highly likely that these are members of the Russian army. But still, the Estonians did respond quite significantly, and they did close a significant amount of border crossings within the area. So we do understand the Estonians did react to this, and it's a fairly significant development, at least as far as they're concerned. Simultaneously, in Belarus, the Belarusian military went to a state of full combat readiness as a part of the inspection, the national inspection, according to the press service of the Ministry of Defense of the Republic of Belarus. That's not really a big deal. They can't really do much. They're structured as a supporting force to the Russians. Meanwhile, inside of Russia, well, actually, by the way, quick little bonus note from the news out of Europe today. The Danes have now announced that they will be spending $4.2 billion to bolster defense of Greenland and the Arctic with the new weapons and equipment system. So it does appear that the Danes will be bolstering their Greenland Arctic defense forces. Outside of that, and inside of the Russian Federation, we also saw that the Ukrainians did land a successful strike in Smolensk, as smoke was seen rising from inside of the city. We're not exactly sure what the hit was, but we did get to confirm what was hit in Ufa. And I guess you could say that the city is really living up to its name of Ufa these days, because the largest oil refinery in the whole of the Russian Federation, which is right here. Actually, it's all of this. It's this whole thing from Yongol right here, up around this area, all the way down to Chernikovka. This whole thing is an oil refinery. It's the largest one in Russia by surface area and volume of output daily. It was successfully hit by Ukrainian Lyudi long-range drone today. This is the drone.
Охуеть.
And so it does appear that the Russians are going to be having a little bit of a harder time with fuel. I didn't get a lot of clips of that today, folks, because I knew that we were going to be running out of time by this point, so I only got the clip of the drone itself and now the refinery on fire. But moving on out of Ufa and on into the Ukraine war, we also saw some fairly significant developments happening around the Sumy battlefield. For one, we did get to see a Russian vehicle was hit on the road to Relisk. It appears to be in some sort of a fuel truck as it was burning prolifically on the side of the street and appears to be burning completely out of control. In the meantime, we also got to see that the Russians had unveiled a brand new electronic warfare system within the area of the Sumy battlefield. And I've got to tell y'all, folks, operational security has always been a #1 priority of the Russian Federation. That's why that road sign right there says Sumy, which let me know that this was in the Sumy battlefield, because there is no other city called Sumy except for Sumy inside of Sumy, Ukraine.
Also, I like how they set up literally right in front of the road sign, too. They could have literally gone down just a little hair extra and they would have missed it, but they had to go right in front of the thing that said, "Welcome to Sumy, take a left."
Man, and Borisovka is right over to the left. It's the left exit here somewhere. And then further down the road is Krasny, let's see, it would be Igvan or something like that, and then Balai, and then Sumy. So you can literally see all of the towns and cities further on down the road because of that road sign right there that they're at. So operational security, once again, was not a priority of the Russians at this point. But the Russians did say this. I'll mute the audio so that way I can just read it for all of y'all, and then y'all can see what happened. Guys, it's over for all the drones. Look what kind of shit we have. I'm talking about the electronic warfare system. But that's not the main thing. Hey, have you seen this kind of crap? Ha ha ha. Now we'll burn everything. That giant electronic warfare system in the back is what he's talking about. He's talking about burning the drones through electronic warfare out of the sky. So, a few minutes pass. That's it. We don't have the expensive electronic warfare anymore. And the car.
That's crazy right there. A dead-on hit, too. They said, otherwise, everything's fine. We're fighting bit by bit. Well, yeah, but you just lost your stuff that you're bragging about, too, though.
Dude, this is the 2-sentence horror story from like Reddit. You know, I just bought an electronic warfare system. 5 minutes later, it burned to the ground. Like, this is the 2-sentence horror. He said, we're gonna burn every single drone out of the sky. 5 minutes later, it gets hit by a drone and blown up. And this was a brand new electronic warfare system, folks. Rarely have ever been seen on the front, and it got destroyed practically immediately. In the meantime, the 225th Separate Assault Regiment also seized Russian strongholds today in this region, which we can see in this clip.
Доброе утро, Украина! Выебали пидорів! Одні флаги.
And there it is, the flag of the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade, one of Russia's most elite, from what they say, on the ground. And they're going to use it as a foot mat.
Флаги залишилися. Вони кинули все та змотались. Куча трофеїв, куча усього. Так, Іва?
Да.
Підарський флаг,
Oh, look, they're stomping on it.
морську піхоту,
Also, a little green man said, can you link this video? Hilarious. Yeah, actually, all these videos are linked. If you go down to the description below to the day 1326 Global War News map and click on that link, you can actually get all of these videos and look at the map that I'm using on air for yourself. Not to give like a merciless plug to the map, but a lot of people don't know that the map that we have on air is custom made here on this channel, and it's entirely accessible in the link in the description below.
трахнули в рот і вони втекли.
Oh my god. Well,
Oh, they brought in that drone motor sound for their outro card.
it's like, oh my god. But moving on from that clip, things looked like they went well in Sumy today. In the meantime, in our location unknowns, we also were able to see this crazy deal. This is a brand new shed that the Russians are bringing forward to the front.
Oh, wow, a shed like a porcupine, honestly. Well, they literally got every sharp, pointy object they could and put on the top. What is that, like sharpened rebar or something they've, like, attached to it? Obviously, that's razor wire on the side, but what's that stuff on the top?
I wouldn't even be able to tell you. This is something akin to what you would see out of Mad Max at this point. Like, it's not even that far from it. But these are the new cope cages they're bringing out these days, folks. They get better all the time. Moving on from that, though, we also got a Rodniks section. Can you believe it? We actually got one finally. So let me show y'all this one, because this one is a treat. It's a Gaz that has had the back of the roof cut out, and everything else has been removed as well.
Oh, man, that's something. I can tell you right now, one of these guys right here might be breaking their back on the top of that car. Can you imagine him stomping the gas or slamming on the brakes? They're going to just get messed up.
Man, they said, Rovka, we're going to ghetto grabbly. And it's like, bro, it's like, this is terrible. Oh my god, this thing's riding on spares, by the way. Every single one of them is a spare.
Honestly, I think the Russians are running on spares too at this point, really.
Man, that's not far from the truth. Like, that's not far from the truth anymore at all. And there they go, off to glory.
Also, look at that. Did you see those canisters on the side, by the way? That is millions and millions of dollars worth, or rubles worth, of gasoline right there that the Russian people back home would love to have a little bit of, a little essence for their vehicles.
Man, honestly, they're blessed to have this amount of fuel. The Ukrainians are about to blow this up in like 5 minutes. They'll geolocate it. They'll hit that fuel supply immediately. But moving on from that, we also got another interesting clip of the scooter assault teams and what they're starting to look like nowadays here on the front. We can see
Oh,
them.
be careful, Bliat. You don't want to get hurt. You don't want to get hurt.
We can see them riding on up through the drone net clad road as this guy's riding on a buggy on the back with a double barrel shotgun like Elmer Fudd out here.
Man,
People find an e-bike.
What the hell? It's an e-bike? That is crazy.
God, blood, dude! When you got to commute to college at 10, but fight for the motherland at 12, you get an e-bike with a trailer. Oh my god, this is so jank. I can't even comprehend. And the wheels of this trailer, they're made out of a bicycle's wheels.
Honestly, I would hate to be the guy on the back right here. He looks like a goober trying to take these drones down, like just sitting there bouncing. Could you imagine your last sight is seen bouncing around on the back of a bicycle buggy on the back of an e-bike? I mean, that's not dignified.
That is not dignified at all. Bro, that is the worst way to put this. You're like, that's not dignified, bro. You already, like, sentenced them to death. You're like, that's not a dignified way to die. Honestly, I would agree. And also, on top of that, my question is, considering that there's no suspension for this trailer, how's this guy even supposed to get a steady shot at a drone? His shot's going to be all over the place when he actually fires, so what's even the point?
I don't even know, really. He could just be like the sacrifice or something, honestly, at this point, because there's no way he's hitting the drone with that.
Honestly, man, I doubt it. Oh my god.
Also, look at all that, like, did he have on, like, extra body armor or something? Like, it seems like he's wearing more armor than the guy on the actual e-bike.
You know, actually, it looks like he's wearing like a 6B43, and then over that, another piece of body. Like, let me show you. Like, let's see, it's like a 6B43 body armor, not from Tarkov. We're looking for the real deal. Let's see here. Ah, yes, here we are. Well, this isn't really it. Actually, I'm thinking about the 6B42, I think. Yeah, something. Why the hell are all the pictures from Tarkov? Anyways, something along this line. Kind of like that, and then he has, like, the smaller tactical, like, plate carrier on top of that.
Yeah, I think he's wearing more like, it's like a makeshift EOD suit or something. They're trying to like suit this guy up so that way if he takes a drone hit, maybe he has a better chance of survival. But also, did you notice his pants too? His pants were extremely like puffy looking, like there was something underneath his pants too, like down the leg of the pant. Like something looked like it was like even going on with that as well.
Let's see here. Let's get another good view at this guy. He's got a pouch for ammo between his legs. I think that's what it is.
Maybe so, but this guy looks like he's wearing a lot more than the other people. Maybe that's their strategy, is to give the guy the shotgun for drone defense and also try to armor him up more so he can maybe withstand it. I don't think it's going to stop it, though. He's still going to get jacked up.
Well, it's an RPG-7 that'll be hitting him dead on, so, like, I'm honestly doubting that that'll help him. Also, by the way, this is the body armor. It's actually the 6B2 that I was talking about right here. It's this shell type, and then on top of that, it looks like he has a modern plate carrier. That's what it seems like his armor loadout is. That is pretty wild. And then this guy just seems to be wearing some sort of modern body armor, although it's probably just filled with cardboard, but pretty jank if you ask me, folks. Pretty damn jank. Outside of that, however, the Russian casualty report did come out for the day, and it was interesting. Mr. EC Keeper of the Records stated the troop losses for the 7-day average rises to 1,027, with the 6-day being over 1,000, which is great to hear. And over the past 24 hours, we have been able to confirm that 1,060 Russian soldiers have been wounded and killed, along with 6 APCs, 72 supply trucks, 1 main battle tank, 21 artillery pieces, 219 drones, 1 MLRS, and 18 cruise missiles. All in all, it was a pretty damn good day, and it does appear that the Russian Federation is still taking exorbitantly high losses inside of Ukraine. But before we move on from that and into the rest of the news that we've gotten from the Ukrainian front lines tonight, I do want to ask y'all about that full combat readiness and what y'all are thinking about that announcement from Belarus today. And Matthew, what are people thinking about it, or what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So we did see today, like we mentioned earlier, that Belarus went on full combat readiness, allegedly for an inspection. That's what they're saying. But this happened to occur right after the little green men were spotted near Estonia. So is it merely a routine occurrence, or is it something more sinister? And it looks like 37% said it seems like something else, while 34% said yes, it's probably nothing too significant. It's probably what they say. It's probably for an inspection. And 18% said I'm 50-50 on it. And on this one, I got to say, I'm a bit 50-50. I'm actually with the 18%. Not totally sure if there is something else to it. I think right now I'm going to run with what they're saying. That's very precarious, though, because, of course, it's Belarus and Russia. You got to watch out. But I'm kind of 50-50. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I'm more towards the side. I'd actually have to be with the 35%. It's nothing too significant. Going up to full combat readiness for a limited duration is nothing to really freak out about. And on top of that, the fact that the Belarusian military by design is a subordinated support force to the Russian armed forces and has been since 2005, them going on to high combat alert really means nothing, because they really can't do anything on their own, because they're not designed as a military to be able to do anything on their own. Y'all wouldn't believe me when I say that. That sounds like the stupidest thing that a quote-unquote independent country could do. But if you don't believe me, pull it up. You can actually find that there was a treaty signed by Belarus and Russia in 2005 that pretty much subordinated the entire Belarusian military to become a support force for the Russians whenever they base out of Belarus. I'm not even kidding on that. That's literally the treaty. So I would have to say it's probably nothing too significant. I would have to be with the 35%. But moving on from that and on into the rest of our news for the night, moving us into Belgrade, we were able to hear that the Belgrade power plant, the thermal power plant, was hit and knocked out again by the Ukrainians overnight. Here are some of the clips that we got. The governor of Belgrade said it was hit by a HIMARS. We have no clue in hell that it was hit by a HIMARS. It was hit by something, but we're not sure if it's a HIMARS. But here's the clip. Ракета, блядь.
Блин. HIMARS.
So hard.
Man, honestly, man, those songs were bops back in the day. They were. Also, we got to see this clip from the city streets of what it was like to be out there in the midst of this. And we hear the airstrikes happening overhead. We can see the flashes. Camera person sounding a little bit flustered.
Just sound hysterical out here on the street.
Oh, блядь, take it off. Oh, dog's down, damn it, dog. All I have to do is down, damn it, dog, bleh. Oh, there was a flash right up there in the middle of the sky. We can continue to see explosions happening all around as the air sirens go off. They continue to chit-chat amongst themselves. What is going on? They ask as explosions are going on all around. It's like, woman, what do you think's going on? It's a damn war. Like, it's a war happening around you.
It seems like Belgrade is going to be the future target of all these electrical grid strikes. It seems like they're getting smashed over and over.
I would have to agree. It really does. And also, you can see this woman making a run for it. And that's the end of the clip, but still giving us a little bit of a look at the strikes on the power plant that was happening overnight. Moving us on out of Belgrade and on further down the way and into the front lines. Crazily enough, folks, we didn't really get a lot of frontline footage from the front lines today at all. I was actually trying to pack the front lines with as much footage as we could during the news gathering times earlier today before the show. Unfortunately, there just wasn't really a lot. The only thing that we got directly from the front line was down in Zaporizhia, which we'll get to here in a moment. But outside of that, the only thing we got from inside the Ukraine, near to the front lines, was a significant drone attack that the Ukrainians had conducted inside the Donetsk city area, apparently hitting significant Russian supply caches and setting them alight. We also were able to see additional footage of these fires that broke out within the city of Donetsk in this picture here, showing the Pier market blowing up, which is what the Ukrainians directly hit. And we also were able to see And this additional clip as well, the significant fire. And another drone coming on in.
Whoa.
What?
Drone is coming in fast. Did you not see that thing?
Man, I mean, that thing sounded like a Stuka. Like, honestly, like... I mean, that thing was revving. Like, honestly, that thing was like maxing out. But still, a successful attack from what we were able to hear, and it did impact the Russian Federation a decent bit. In the meantime, we also heard that a Russian Ka-52 was taken down somewhere inside of the Donbass. We're not exactly sure where, but it was shot down. So, you know, the earth is sky, the peace is ground, ashes to dirts, or all that stuff. It does appear that another Ka-52 was lost.
Earth is sky, brothers. Water is planet, brothers. Galaxy is solar system, brothers. Remember that moon is sun, brothers. And also remember this as well. You cannot forget that Russian integrity is fake, brothers.
And also, I think one of the best quotes that we've heard recently was something like, show some skin. There was one that sounded something like that, wasn't there?
I don't think it ever said that.
Bro,
I think so.
okay,
I think it said something like, when plane loses skin, it loses soul, or something like that.
Bro, honestly, I like mine better, man. Ka-52 was lost. Show some skin. Like, bro, they ought to do that for the next one, the next Ka-52 that's lost. But anyways, moving on out of that area and down towards Zaporizhia, we were able to see the 65th Ronin conducting its targets on Russian forces in the Zaporizhia direction overnight. We see them bringing in the drone to hit Bulhaka, as well as motorbike.
Oh, look, motorbike is blasted, brothers.
Motorbike, the petrol is soil, brother. Like, but man, they are slamming them. They're just hitting them, folks. Oh, look.
Oh, man.
Oh, my God, that was a clown car. Like, that was a Desert Cross clown car. There was a whole squad on that thing.
Man, that poor old suspension was crying out for help. It said, hey, help.
Man, that thing said, I'm tired, boss. Like, man, that thing was tired.
Help me.
Oh, and we can see them coming on down and hitting them. And also getting ready to slam a barrel of an artillery piece. That's a pretty big one, actually. That might be a... I can't really tell y'all what that was. It could have been a Gyansen B, a Mista B, or a Mista S. It could have been any of those three. We can see them also bringing it on down to slam this Russian automobile. Automobile. That's a song from Russia, by the way, from the Soviet times. Very bad one. But we were able to see them continuing to hit the Russians inside of the tree lines. And they are continuing to do a great job. Oh, and here comes another. Oh, holy moly. And they get it again. They're about to get this UAZ 469, which is hiding in this dugout.
Come on, coach. Let me out the dugout, coach. Come on, coach.
Put me in, coach. Put me in. Put me in, damn it. But that was the only clip we got from the whole of the front lines today. Still, good to see the 65th doing its job. And the Ukrainians were able to hold the lines over the rest of the front, from what we understand today. It's just that we don't have any footage to show of that. Nevertheless, we are now going to be moving on up into Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 1,326 of the war. And they're also starting to add these, like, baller thumbnails now to the speeches. They look like normal. They're not cinematic looking like that. But they're starting to add thumbnails to them, like these.
I like it too. It looks really cinematic, like it's the opening to a Michael Bay movie or something.
Yeah, and then you click on it, and it's just a normal speech, like always. Oh, look, we're trending. Like, look at that, we're trending, man.
Now, that's nice. I like that.
That is nice. That is wonderful and nice, folks. But nevertheless, it's time for us to get to the speech from the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. So, without further ado, here's the speech. Peach!
Здоров'я, шановні українці. Перш за все, я хочу подякувати всім нашим людям, які фактично цілодобово відновлюють постачання електрики після всіх цих російських ударів. Багато зроблено в Києві, на Київщині, в східних областях. Через російські обстріли значно ускладнена відновлення на Харківщині, на Донеччині, Сумщині. Росіяни завдали удару цієї ночі по Одесі. Це був цілеспрямований удар по критичній інфраструктурі. Значну частину дронів вдалося нам збити, але, на жаль, не всі були ураження енергетики в Одесі. Робиться все максимально для ремонту, для відновлення енергопостачання. Я очікую на доповідь щодо цього після 20-ї години. Сьогодні було вже кілька важливих міжнародних розмов, і саме енергетика. Енергетика – це ключові речі. Детально працюємо з нашими партнерами, щоб було достатньо підтримки. Будуть перемовини ще цими днями. Це питання про обладнання, яке ми накопичуємо у резерві на зиму, а також зараз використовуємо в громадах, там, де це потрібно. Також про необхідні фінанси, звісно, ще ППО. Тільки системи ППО, коли їх достатньо, гарантують захист. Ми працюємо, щоб були ракети для систем. Я говорив з президентом Сполучених Штатів Дональдом Трампом дуже детально щодо енергетики, щодо можливості посилити ППО. Поінформував також про ситуацію в Одесі, в інших наших містах, громадах. Вдячний за готовність допомогти. Президент Трамп питав про ситуацію в столиці, в інших наших регіонах. Світ бачить, що робить Росія, як вона намагається скористатись тим, що лідери світу зосереджені на спробі завершити війну на Близькому Сході. Великі шанси там на те, що угода спрацює. Чим більше миру, чим більше безпеки в одному регіоні, тим більше можливостей це дає усім світі. Україна завжди саме з такої позиції закликає світ підтримувати наш захист, підтримувати нашу роботу тут, в Європі, заради безпеки. На жаль, Росія – це такий терорист, який шукає будь-яку можливість вдарити сильніше, особливо тоді, коли увага світу на іншому. Навіть тоді, коли вже очевидно, що саме вони там, в Росії, залишаються єдиним, буквально останнім джерелом повномасштабної війни. Розраховуємо, що Сполучені Штати Америки та всі інші наші партнери будуть надалі сильно діяти, сильно тиснути заради того, щоб наші люди відчули підтримку, мали захист, щоб Україна була здатною вистояти. Сьогодні я отримав необхідні сигнали, що Америка розглядає можливості посилити нашу співпрацю. Дякую. Сьогодні ж говорив з прем'єр-міністром Канади і теж передусім про наші потреби у протиповітряній обороні, в енергетичній підтримці. Добре йде наша програма Pearl, яка дозволяє купувати американську зброю, зокрема ракети для Петріотів. Я дякую всім партнерам в НАТО, хто вже в програмі, і ми будемо вдячні Канаді за розширення її участі. Також скоординували наші контакти з іншими лідерами, з іншими країнами. За підсумками сьогоднішніх розмов з лідерами вже дав необхідні доручення нашій команді, військовим, офісу, Міністерству закордонних справ. Результати мають бути. Дякую всім, хто з нами, дякую всім, хто з Україною. І дякую всім, хто з нашими людьми, хто допомагає нашій державі, хто допомагає нашим громадам, всім тим, хто зараз цього потребує. Важливо підтримати одне одного. Вся Україна тоді стане сильніше. Слава Україні!
And with that, folks, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 1326 of the news from around the world. And it's time for us, folks, to move on into the second segment of this stream. And that's where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. Yippee! We get to talk to all the folks who threw in super chats and hopefully as many people as we can get in the live chat, because there are a lot of interesting and deep questions that are presented to us, both through the super chats, which help this channel to keep running, because it's pretty much the only way that we were able to fund ourselves doing this as a full-time job, and all of the live chats as well, which are usually incredibly genius with the kinds of ideas that they come up with. And so we will be making sure to get into each and every single question that we can. And of course, folks, the news is over. If you were here for news, you're a little late. 2 hours late, as a matter of fact. What do you mean, Jack? You got here for the news. Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran He ran Scranton. Scrimpy.
Hey, wait a minute. The news is not over. We have a bonus piece of news
Oh.
right now. Enforcer, we need to show people what it looks like in Russia when the people revel in the destruction of the place. What does it look like? Some people call this shenanigans. Some people call it gopnik activities. Show them the man doing donuts in the park, in the car park that is, right in front of all the stuff burning down in a temporarily occupied Donetsk. We have to show the people this. It's crazy.
This, everyone, is Gopnikska.
Look at that.
Oh yeah, beat it, bust it down, boy.
You know what's even worse about this, though, is this guy is trying to do donuts in a front-wheel drive car, which, first of all, you're not going to be able to do a donut in a front-wheel drive car. Number two, you're probably going to tear the hell of the transmission doing that. Not that he cares, but, you know, the whole city's burning down and he's out here doing donuts. That's a hell of a scene.
Man, mom's soccer car trying to do donuts in reverse in a parking lot in front of a burning building. Folks, if I had to say, if the person in this vehicle got out of the car right now, what would they have on them? They would be dressed in an Adidas tracksuit. They would have a bottle of vodka in hand with a bag of sunflower seeds in the other hand and a lighter and some cigarettes in a pocket. I can promise you that if that person got out of that car, there's an 80% chance they'd look like that. Like, that is probably exactly what they would be, because I have never seen anything more Gopnik core than this, literally trying to do donuts in front of a burning supercenter in Donetsk.
Also, by the way, I see people saying that's how you do donuts in front-wheel drive vehicles in the winter. Well, you know, here's my thing. Nothing against people that drive the front-wheel drive cars, but I've seen people do everything from putting McDonald's trays on the back wheels so that way they can slide the rear end around while they have front-wheel drive on their car. Just don't do that. Please don't do that. It just doesn't look right. But also, by the way, this guy could be rich, actually, because remember, there is a gas shortage going on. Nobody can get gas. Meanwhile, this guy's revving this motor out to the max in this parking lot and burning gas like a fiend. So, I mean, he could be wealthy. You never know.
Man, he's just sitting here in the depths of hell, spinning his car around in circles in the only spot that isn't on fire. Honestly, kind of based in a weird way. But anyways, it is time for us to move on into all the questions. And I saw so many people agree with me. 100% that's what the guy would probably look like in that car. I mean, I don't know, but there's a pretty damn high chance. Like, I'm not gonna lie. But anyways, it is time for us to get on into all of them questions. And we got lots of them, folks. We've got so many of them. Loads of them. How many super chats do we have, Matthew, as a matter of fact? So we can try and time this out a little bit better tonight.
We have about 12 of them right now, so actually not a huge roster tonight. But also, by the way, I do want to address something before we jump onto our super chats. I see people asking about the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Of course, that's still a huge story. Like, I know people are like on a cliffhanger with that one. They're like, what's happening with the power plant? But right now, the situation, according to what we still know, is status quo. We have not heard any verified reports that Russia has reconnected it to the Ukrainian power grid. We have heard rumors, however, that the Russians are trying to get ready to connect it to the Russian power grid, but we haven't gotten confirmation of that. And also, number three, we still do not know the situation about the fuel that's still left for the diesel generators. So there's a lot of unknowns right now, but we haven't gotten any good news or necessarily bad news yet about what's happening there. But it's still an ongoing crisis that we're waiting on more news to come out about.
Also, by the way, folks, God dang it, don't rush us. When the news comes out, it comes out. I'm just playing with y'all. Unfortunately, we just don't get a lot of updates on that often. Nobody really tells anything to the public about what's going on down there often, so we're as much in the dark about the current situation of the plant as y'all are on it. But I can promise you, folks, we are going through everything on the internet with a fine-tooth comb, trying to find any developments on that every day. When we get one, we will make sure to tell y'all. But at the moment, unfortunately, we just don't have one. And so whenever we do not have an update on it and you want to know what the situation is, just revert back to the situation is what it was the last time we reported on it, because that's all we know as well, and we always operate off of that as a standard until we get information to prove otherwise. So I hope that does address that well, also with the redneckisms coming out as an answer to that. Dang it, Jamie, I don't control the damn weather. But beyond that, I hope that does answer the question for y'all. Also, I saw some people, let's see here, let's see, some people are talking about all kinds of interesting stuff in the chat. And you know, folks, it's time for us to start getting cracking at that. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our first super chat question of the last segment, this one goes to Philip Lanebull, and he puts in a $20 support. And thank you very much, Philip, for supporting the channel and helping to keep us on the air, because it's you, the viewers, that keep the show going every single night with that support. And Philip said, thanks, guys.
And thank you for supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing running. And I gotta say, a massive, tremendous thanks to everyone who's been enjoying this channel and really liking it, because y'all help us to make this thing possible and help us to keep this thing running. And I gotta say, folks, it's a wonderful thing, a wondrous, incredible sort of a thing. And so, a big thanks to you so much. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. I really do. I really do. And with that, folks, it's time for us to move on into the next one. But before we move on into the next one, folks, you know, I'm actually going to give something to some folks. They might appreciate it. This hasn't been done in a minute, and considering that we do have a lower amount of super chats right now, I thought I would go on a rabbit hole that I know some people have been wanting, because I always see it every time we say we're going to move into the questions and talk about anything. Some people put, and all exclamation points, trains. And I will bring up a couple, just a few, from the local area from where we are. Considering that we're moving out of here, I thought I would give a little shout out to some really unique railroads around here that are not big. One of those is the Alabama-Tennessee River Railway. And I'll show you all that one really quickly. Alabama-Tennessee River Railway. Here we are. The Alabama-Tennessee River Railway. It is a little railroad that operates, I think, 130 miles of rail from Birmingham, Alabama to the port of Gunnersville, and also has a rail yard in Gadsden. And this one's pretty neat because it operates an entire EMD roster. So for y'all rail fans or foamers out there, y'all are really going to appreciate that, because not really a lot of railroads do that anymore. Well, actually, I don't think, actually, that might be the Alabama-Tennessee River Railway. I never knew that they had SD-70, so, but outside of that, they have a really unique roster of older engines, some pretty cool ones, like this SD-45 tunnel motor that they got a while ago. I was like, that one's pretty cool. And then, also, there is the Birmingham Terminal Railway. Let's see, Birmingham Terminal Railway. This one's actually pretty neat, too. Because, Matthew, it has a UAB, I think it's a GP39, if I'm not mistaken, is what that is.
That's very fascinating.
It is incredibly fascinating. Amazing, actually. So I hope that is our little train rabbit hole for the night for some people who've been asking for that for days, that y'all know a couple of the short lines that operate here around the Birmingham area, or at least within this northern part of Alabama that we're in. But still, I hope y'all enjoyed a little train rabbit hole right there. And also, I just saw Who LFG talk about the Soviet AA-20. We can talk about that probably a little bit later on the night, but that is a whole rabbit hole in itself, but it is a really fun one. But anyways, with that, I hope y'all enjoyed the short little rabbit hole. Had to give that because some people have been asking for that for days, and I haven't really done a lot on trains in days. So with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat here goes to Robert Krogan, and he puts in a $20 donation, and thank you very much, Robert, for that support once again, and we do appreciate that very much. He said a little something, and also, treaty, what treaty?
Treaty? What are you talking about? Treaty? More like my treat. But beyond that, big thanks to you so much for the support, and I see what you mean right there. I see what you mean. Treaties don't really mean anything anymore, do they? Like, everyone just violates them at the first chance they get. It's a little bit crazy like that, because I don't think a lot of these nations or their national leaders understand that these treaties are what have been keeping the peace for decades, and hopefully will keep the peace for a good while longer. But apparently it doesn't matter to them now, because a lot of people are craving violence, and I think a lot of people are going to figure out that that's something you definitely don't want to crave. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again, and with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, our next super chat goes to Peteski, and Peteski puts in a 20 as well, and a huge shout out to you, good sir, for also helping to make the news possible. And he said, good evening, enforcers, and we've been told to be ready for a war, and conversations that I've had with people who are squared away and situationally aware say that we're already at war with Russia and China and their allies who are synchronizing. And what are y'all's thoughts? And I'll say for me, Peteski, I think that that is generally true. It feels like, in my personal opinion, we are in the pre-World War III stage right now, because you got to imagine if we were really going into World War III, what would it look like? And in my opinion, it would look exactly like what we're seeing right now. Proxy wars literally all over the place. Also direct wars between major powers literally right on the precipice of actually about to pop off. We're seeing it between China. We got China teaming up with Russia. They're teaming up against the United States. Then we got Venezuela jumping in the mix. I mean, we've got a lot of stuff going on. So when you have this many fires breaking out at once, it's hard to douse them. And once they start getting a lot of momentum, it's really hard to stop them. And at this point, it seems like we're past the point of no return. And it's not a matter of when it's going to happen. It's not a question of if it's going to happen. It's when it's going to happen. So that's the big question that I don't really have the answer to, is when is it truly going to cross into direct war territory? Because right now it's like a hybrid war. It's like covert warfare, sabotage, and things like that on NATO by these Axis powers, but it hasn't turned into a real invasion of NATO yet. So that's the big question mark for me. When is Russia or any of their henchmen going to launch a real attack on NATO that forces an Article 5 response? When that happens, that will be the actual real start of the hot phase of World War III, in my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that we are already in a war. It's a war that hasn't gone hot. A Cold War, in a sense, is probably the best way to put it. A second one, really. That's what I would say that we are largely in right now. Because we might as well be in direct conflict with the Russians directly at the moment, and we are getting to the point of almost being in a direct conflict with the Chinese. But what has not really created a complete Cold War with the Chinese is that we still have pretty decent economic relations with them, at least in terms of the volume of trade that we have every year with China. So that's what doesn't really classify China yet as a full-blown Cold War, is just that one factor being different. But with the Russians, we are definitely in a Cold War once again with them inside of Europe. And I have a feeling that it's probably going to go hot here soon and become a hot war, which means it's going to happen in the summer. So everyone get a lemonade. But outside of that, I would generally have to agree with those sorts of assessments. I generally look at it as if we are already at war with these countries. It's just that the shooting hasn't really started. So with that, I hope that doesn't.
Also, I want to bring this up while we're still in that same super chat right there that Pitsky put in. Isn't it kind of interesting? Because I saw people debating this on Twitter yesterday. People were debating using the term hybrid warfare to describe the pre-phase of World War III. I will admit, it's a little bit strange, and that's a brand new term, by the way. That just started being used recently, as recent as 2007. The term hybrid warfare entered the mainstream. I'm really not sure what hybrid warfare really even means in practice, because it's either a war or it's not. Because warfare doesn't always have to be direct wars, like, for example, you're launching missiles into the other person's territory. As we're seeing today, war can look like drones flying over your airspace and violating it on a daily basis. That's also, in my opinion, an act of war, but we're choosing to sort of like gloss it over with some like a donut glaze here, basically, by calling it hybrid warfare, because it makes it sound less serious than an actual real war. So I don't know. Like me personally, I don't like softening the term war by calling it a hybrid war. I think we should call it what it is. It's a real war that's covert. It's just covert warfare, but it's warfare.
Matthew, are you trying to fearmonger? Are you not calling our customer service associate a cashier?
It's like, what do they call it? Instead of calling somebody a liar, you call them an untruther or something like that. It's just like, it's like dumbing it down and making the term seem less serious than it really is.
Oh yeah, that's what I was pointing out by saying a cashier is a customer service associate. It's like that kind of goofiness. It's like how the Russians say that they're not at war; they're in a special military operation. Same sort of a thing. And I would have to be honest with you, folks. I don't like that. I don't like that, folks. Way back in the day on the channel, before we started getting a little bit more technical, I used to say that so-and-so just bombed someone else. Like anything that had to do with an explosive, whether it was an artillery bomb, a cruise missile, they just bombed them. There was no airstrikes or anything along those lines. Something got blown up, it was bombed. And we always tried to keep the wording as simple as possible and as direct as possible. And generally, that's something that a lot of people don't do these days, like with the whole hybrid war deal. A hybrid war is a war. Like, I don't know how a lot of people don't really get that one. And also how they even try and do the gymnastics to say that a hybrid war isn't a full-blown war, because any form of a war is a war. It doesn't matter whether it's the conventional type or an aconventional type or an atypical type. It is a full-blown war still. And so I would generally have to say we pretty much are at war at this point. It's just that we do not really want to admit that, and we don't want to act like that is the case, at least for now. So I hope that does address that the best that I can, at least from what I would know and what my 2 cents on the matter is. But also, I saw someone say, "Did you just misoccupation me?" Like, and that's I got to be honest, folks. I cannot stand it when people give political titles to jobs that have existed forever, like cashiers. Why in the world are cashiers called customer service associates now? Like, I don't get it. They're a cashier still. They still ring up groceries and give you a total and get you to go through the software to pay for whatever you bought. Kind of like how waiters aren't called waiters, they're called servers now. Like, I don't really understand why in the world we act like we have to change the words because we go, oh, they're offensive. I don't really know what is offensive about a cashier or a janitor or anything like that. Because now you never hear of a janitor anymore. It's always a custodian. Like they just
No,
try to make.
I think he got it wrong here. I think the reason why they're not doing it because it's offensive. They're not changing the term because of that reason. I think companies are changing the terms of these job titles so that way they can sort of use people however they want. Like for example, if you're hired as a cashier, it's really hard to move you over to something else because your title is a cashier. So if you get hired for that, then how do they put you on something like, for example, in a grocery store, they put you from the cashier, from the cash register to the bagging position. If you're called a customer service associate, they can just move you around wherever they want. So I think it just gives them more flexibility to sort of like use people the way they want, throw them into other roles. Basically, that's basically it.
Yeah, but at the same time though, it extends to everything else in every single sphere. And on top of that, when you look at it, it doesn't really have to do with them doing more. Like for example, it just has to do with changing the title sometimes, because in some companies, a customer service associate's job is literally just that of a cashier's. In others, they've completely deleted the job of the janitor, and now they just try and get the cashiers to be janitors on top of that. And it's like, why? It's like it's a cost-cutting thing. You don't have to pay some additional guy just to be a janitor or have a whole janitor staff. You can just get the cashiers to do it. But at the same time, though, it's just something that really grinds my gears with that whole deal, because people act like it's now offensive to just say they're a cashier or they're a server, or like not a server, a waiter or something along those lines. It's like there's nothing wrong with those words. I mean, that's the name of their occupation. It's the actual name. It's like how instead, like it's like how everything gets, honestly, man, the best way to say it is it's the kind of shine and polish that people put on resumes now. Like instead of saying that you were the public relations guy, you are the customer relations technician or professional or something like that. It's like you were the PR guy. You were the customer service guy. You dealt with like complaints at the refunds desk. It's like that's what you really
Yeah.
did. It's like everything's got.
Honestly, I'm gonna have to change my job title from co-host. I'm gonna have to change it over to Your Majesty Speaker to the Peoples type person or something like that. I need to change it to something more glorious, like that top tier resume polishing type stuff.
Yeah, I think that a great title would be Lord Imperior of the skies and the seas below, the fish of the seas and the commander of the dolphins, whales, and other mammals of the ocean, the conqueror and all-knowing creator of all creatures living and dead on land, as well as peoples throughout the entirety of the worlds and celestial bodies and galaxies, the Enforcer. I think that would be a good title.
That could be a good title. However, I think a lot of people get the name Enforcer mixed up with like mafia culture or something like that. They're like, "Why are you called the Enforcer?"
What do you
It's like, well, it's not
enforce?
it's not a mafia reference or something. It's just the term. It's not a mafia reference. I think people will take it that way. There's some people come in taking it literally. They're like, "Well, what exactly are you enforcing?" It's like, well, we're not enforcing anything. That's like going up to somebody. It's like going up to somebody else and saying, "Why are you called a cashier? I don't see you cashing." It's like, well, they're not literally like cashing. It's like, come on now.
If y'all want to know where the name actually came from way back in the day, because it's actually my gamer tag. Way back in the day on Steam, I used to play this World War One first-person shooter called Verdun, and I was really good at it. There was only this other person in the game that I would ever run into that was as good as me, and it always felt like a competition when we were in the same match on different teams, and that player's name was Zab, spelled Z-A-B. And so I was like, damn, like my name was so generic on Steam up till then, and I went, damn, I really need to like put myself out there. Like, I'm putting people down in this game. Like at the end of a match, like if you've ever played the game for done, you'll know that getting like 40 kills in that game is a pretty high sort of rate. I would get like 100 or 120. Like, I would just dominate a match. And so I was like, dang, I gotta like let people know I'm in these matches. Like, to strike the fear of God in them. I was like, I gotta come up with a more intimidating name. So I was like, oh, the Enforcer. Yeah, because I'm putting them down. And so I changed my Steam name to the Enforcer. And thus the rest is history. And then the channel got named that a long time ago. It used to be called, I believe it was The Briefing.
Think Tank.
Yeah, it was actually called Think Tank. And then for a second, it was supposed to be called The Briefing, but then that was dropped. That was just a planned name change. And then I just changed the channel to my gamer tag name, which was The Enforcer, and then that just stuck, and it was never changed again. And so that's why the channel's called The Enforcer. Has nothing to do with, like, mafioso stuff. It literally has to do with the video game. And it was supposed to be, like, a cool gamer tag sort of a thing. And now it's turned into, like, a giant name in news, which is really weird, but that's where the name comes from.
I remember though, like it was about, I think it was like almost a year ago. I ordered a pizza from a local Italian pizza joint, and I used by accident. I used my Enforcer Matt email, and which I did by total accident. Because I usually don't do that, just in case someone happens to know us and they're like, I don't like that guy, and they want to do something to the food. So I'll use like my other email for that. So I go into the place to go pick it up, and the guy who was a Italian fellow, nice fellow behind the counter, he's like, "Are you Enforcer Matt?" I was like, yeah. And it looked at me kind of like up and down. I was like, I mean like a literal enforcer or something like that. If that's what you think. He's like, oh, okay, okay. I was like, yeah. I was like, not the real deal. It's just a little moniker. That's all. Just a little something for the people. That's it. He's like, oh, okay, I see. Here's your pizza.
Forget about it.
That's why I was like, man, I was like, come on now, forget about it. Don't hold me up. Come on now, forget about it. Come on now.
Forget about it. Come on now. And also, someone said, why are we belittling folks that use the resume method to make a living? I'm not belittling it. I'm more so not, I'm like, I don't know why you're thinking I'm targeting individuals by saying that. What I am targeting, though, is the societal expectation that people have to fib their resumes like that. Like, what's wrong with saying, I was a cashier for a year at Walmart? Like, what is wrong with just saying that up front? I don't find anything wrong with that at all. At all. Like, I don't really think, like, why in the world do people have to, like, trump that up? They'll be like, I was a customer service associate that would deal with hundreds of individuals and their unique needs and wants every single day and ensure that they found the most and highest levels of satisfaction. And I did that for over the period of 12 months or 365 days over 8-hour periods on most scheduled days. Like, why in the world do people have to put it like that for like a job seeker or like an employer to go, oh, this is great. Like, that is so dumb. Like, as a cultural sort of a thing. Like, it should just go back to what it is, straight up. It's like, I was a cashier at Walmart for a year. It's like, okay, well, you have a pretty reliable track record. Why in the world were you only there for a year? It was a seasonal thing. I had to move, so I had to quit that job. Oh, okay. It's like that. It's that easy. People don't have to make this whole deal complicated and get into the goofy political wording game to make it sound like they did something. I mean, they did something already, and just say it for what it is up front. And,
Well, what's worse? What's worse though is like I get what you're referencing, but it's even worse than you think because we haven't been in the job market for a minute because we've been self-employed for a while here doing our journalism on YouTube. But the job market's gotten rougher than even I remember it. I've heard about some people looking for jobs currently. Most employers are using AI to scan resumes now, so now they're looking for certain words that the AI looks for in the resume. And if you don't have those certain buzzwords in there, then it just like throws your resume out completely. So some people are getting smart now, like on their LinkedIn profiles, they'll add like a LLM instruction, basically an AI instruction for a prompt. And some of these emails that these HR like departments send out will actually have like the recipe to like lemon cookies or something in it, because that'll be like the AI instruction they added to it, because it's actually AI responding to these job offers.
That is just crazy, honestly. The whole system
Terrible.
System of that is busted, really. Terrible. I really feel for a lot of people out there, and I'm not like, and I also want to make it clear, because I think that one person took it that I was attacking people who do that. I'm not attacking people who do that. I know that's how it is in the modern world. But at the same time, what I am attacking is that the fact that it's like that in the modern world where people have to do that. Why do we have to do that? It makes no sense when you think about it. Like, you know, when people back in the day, like the boomers were getting jobs back in the 60s and 70s, they didn't have to do any of that at all. They would just walk in and go, yeah, I was a cashier at Walmart. Okay, you got the job today. You can start working right now. And it's like they didn't have to go through that whole rigmarole of BSing and then going through the 5th round of interviews. This whole process that exists today for finding a job is absolutely stupid. I will tell y'all something, folks. I remember I tried to get a job at Chick-fil-A years ago, and they would make you do a video prompt for 1 minute, and it was like it was like one of those goofy questions, you know, that you normally get, like something abstract, like, oh, if you were able to wander through the meadow of the lilies and the butterflies, what would you do? You know, something like that. And then you had to give a response to that. Only 10 seconds to think about it, and then give a response to it, filmed in a minute. You couldn't pause it or redo it. You just had to do it the first time. I did it, and then they sat there and said, congratulations, you have made it to the 2nd round of interviews. And then I went and pulled it up online. Turns out it was like a 3 or 4 round interview process to get a job that I think was paying like $8.40 an hour. It's like, this isn't like a CEO position. I don't know why there's this much vetting going on here. This is a base level, low skill job. It's like, no, you don't really need a lot to be able to do this job. It's like, why in the world is there so many hoops to this thing? And there's like loads of hoops like that for most every job nowadays. Even if they're low level entry, low skill jobs, they make it to where you have to act like you're almost a PhD professional that's gone to university for 9 years to hold a job with almost no pay. You know, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me personally.
Yeah, it really doesn't, honestly. That had to go back to good old simple times when it comes to just like simply you walk in like the ages of old. You just walk in and say, hey, you got a paper application in here? And they're like, yeah, Sonny, here's your little paper application. And then you go sit down at the desk and you fill it out and you give it right back. And then they're like, okay, can you start tomorrow? And they're like, yeah, sure. And then you just show up. It's not like that anymore. Hell no, it's not like that. It doesn't matter what job you're looking for. It is highly bureaucratic now, which is awful. It makes job finding hideous. And also, not to mention, the job market is shrinking now. Like, I'm not sure if people are keeping up with that. I'm sure everybody is, but the job market is shrinking in the modern day. They're trying to fluff the numbers where it looks like it's better than it actually is. It's not. Like, it's really kind of grim.
Yeah, also I saw Chris say, as a person who hires people, most can't pass a drug test and other half don't show up for orientation. What kind of skill level jobs are you hiring people for where that is the case? Because if it's a low skill level job that you're hiring people for, you know, like that's probably going to be expected. Like, honestly, at least in my opinion, that would kind of be expected, that you're not really going to have a lot of people who stick around. A lot of them are going to flake out because, you know, it's a low skilled job. It doesn't take a lot to get them. So, you know, anyone like people who need a job starting out like in high school and stuff, they're going to apply for it. And then also the people who fell through the cracks and just didn't make it, they're also going to be applying for those jobs as well. So, you know, you can't really expect a lot of reliability out of them. But if you're, say, hiring them for medium or high skill level job and they're doing that, then that would be shocking. I'd be like, oh my God, that actually is like nuts that's happening. But if it's like a low skill level job, let's see, a lot of different positions at a hospital. Oh, that's crazy. That's wild, actually. I wasn't expecting that. I thought it was going to be something like, I thought you were about to say something like warehouse work or something like that, you know, for like UPS or a larger company like that. That's actually crazy that you can't get people to work at a hospital. Honestly, it's just.
Well, you know, there's a lot of people that work at hospitals and aren't medical professionals. Like, you got to hire cafeteria staff, janitorial staff, you know, people for secretaries. I mean, there's a lot of jobs that are not just medical at a hospital.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, that's still wild, though. You know, and that's also something else that's wild, is that some people don't really have a work ethic. Even if they need to have one, they don't really have one. But then also at the same time, the hiring process. Honestly, the whole thing is crazy these days, you know? But I would still say that I think applying in person, like actually filling out an application and then going through that specific store manager or that specific store staff to get hired or not, to where they can just do it in person. I think that's a far better way at hiring than doing this whole crazy process that everyone has nowadays. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And let's see. Also, Blind Man Nick said, that's why I like my job at the press hall. The interview was literally a tour of the building and a single question. Are you ready for a career instead of a job? Yeah, that's actually a pretty good application in the process. Like, that's really easy, actually. You're very lucky in that regard. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Bobby43, also known as LC39A, and he puts in another $50 support all the way from Canada. And a huge shout out to you, Bobby, for that second support of the night. Big league. And he said, in reference to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, he said if he were in charge, he would go in and take it over and tell the scientists, you're fired. Honestly, that's what the Russians did. The Russians went right in there and took it over and basically told everybody, well, actually, they really didn't fire anybody. They just came in and said, you're going to work and you're going to work around the clock and you're going to work for us now. It's basically what the Russians did. And it's been some terrible conditions, at least from what we've heard through reports. So tough to work there now. And also, obviously, the Russians aren't great at human resources, to say the least. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say, that is an interesting sort of a concept, Bobby. And I would have to also say that generally I think that the power plant does need to be brought under some sort of neutral control, like the United Nations or something along those lines, that can maintain stability at the power plant, because I don't think the Russians can do that at all. And that's been something that they've been trying to deal with for years. But I do thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running and making this thing possible. And also, I saw Jeff Steele say it's Belt in the Road, not One Belt, One Road. I think it is One Belt, One Road. And the Belt and Road Initiative, or, let's see, also known in China as the One Belt, One Road, and sometimes called the New Silk Road. So it really is any one of the three. But I call it the One Belt, One Road, because if you look at most of this, like the Council of Foreign Relations, the two were collectively referred to first as the One Belt, One Road Initiative, but eventually became the Belt and Road Initiative. So generally, I'm just calling it off of the older naming convention. Either one of them works. And on top of that, you still know what I'm talking about, Commander. So I call it the One Belt, One Road. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Peteski yet again. He threw in his second support of the night, a 30 this time. And thank you very much, Peteski, for helping to keep the ball running. He said, take one from the chat. And we shall. We shall take one from the chat, Peteski. And once again, a huge shout out to you. And that live chat question, sponsored by none other than Peteski, goes to Grand Muff. And they said, do you think these smaller conflicts might be a prelude to World War III?
I would say that none of them could really lead to World War III. Usually there's like always a little conflict going on here and there. But with the current prevailing conditions nowadays, I think it's kind of just more so a litmus test of the global atmosphere on foreign policy, which is very aggressive and unstable right now. And so I hope that does address it the best way I can. And a big thanks to you once again for support and sponsoring that live chat question all the way from Australia. And so humongous thanks to you once again. And we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, I'm not sure if many people know this, but in some Russian companies, they have HR departments. Like obviously all companies, most companies have HR departments to deal with all the tit for tat type stuff going on in companies when people get in little skirmishes with one another, little petty arguments and stuff like that. You got to have somewhere for them to go and hash that out. The weird thing is the HR department is always on the 99th floor, which is a little bit strange. They like to put the HR department well up high, so that way you have a nice view of Moscow. But the funny part is the windows don't lock. That's the funny part. And it usually never turns out good. So honestly, Russian HR, I would pass on going to the Russian HR department personally.
Honestly, man, when Russia, sometimes you tell a joke so funny that even HR has to hear it, and then they throw you out, like right out the window. They let the whole city hear it as you're falling to the ground. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, by the way, somebody said, OMG. I'm kind of like partially joking, partially not. Honestly, it's not the Russian companies, really. It's more like the Russian government that doesn't lock the windows, really. That's the wild part. It's the government doing it, not the companies. So anyways, jumping into our next super chat here. This one goes to Blind Man, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Blind Man, good sir, for that support. He said, hello, Enforcers and LSA. And from last stream, wouldn't Venezuela have to cripple Tunel Bocran 1 and 2 to reroute the U.S. from Caracas? And also, wouldn't Valencia to Puerto La Cruz be better to choke Caracas as a secondary objective?
It would be. I would say that generally the main ports or access points that the U.S. would try and get to would be Puerto Cabello and Maquilleta or Cadia Lamar, generally, which is the two cities here that have airports and operational port facilities to work from. Those would probably be the key ones because they are right within shooting distance of Caracas and Valencia, right over the mountain range, which puts a lot of pressure onto the Venezuelan government immediately. And I would say that Puerto La Cruz is a pretty significant target in itself. It's a major major population area right on the shore, and which would be pretty easy to capture and operate from. So I would actually agree with you. That actually would be the key places that I would think we would go. And usually, folks, a lot of people always like to come up with something complicated, but I'd actually have to say that you came up with pretty much the key plan. Usually, the least path of resistance is what most people go for, and very rarely do they ever go for anything well beyond that or well out of measure. Like, for example, an invasion from Brazil or Colombia or something along those lines. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, another thing that I have to say is that I was just looking at Puerto La Cruz, and I just noticed that they had a tourism district here, which generally looks undeveloped for the most part. And I'm wondering, is there any street views of this place? What does a tourist district look like in Venezuela?
Is that tennis courts over here behind? Oh,
Yeah.
that's a soccer field, actually.
Soccer pitch. They look kind of small, but beyond that, it's the city of Vino Tinto, which I do not know what that means, unfortunately. But let's see. I want to know what it looks like in the undeveloped areas, and they don't allow pictures in there. What about this one? Ah, this is a bird's eye view. Yeah, it's just mostly undeveloped over there. It's like just like a desert almost, actually, which is really crazy. And yachts, like actual yachts.
I don't know why they want a yacht.
I don't know. I guess this is Venezuela's elite that stay here, something like that, because, you know, you'd have to have a lot of money in Venezuela to afford even a boat like that or like that. You know, those definitely aren't cheap. And also that is one hell of a hotel. That thing's actually kind of ugly.
Also, remind me of like the base of that unfinished hotel in Pyongyang, North Korea. It looks similar to it.
The Ruryong Hotel or something like that. It's yeah, it is like that. It's the Isla Paraiso Residencias Yacht and Club. It doesn't look
That
bad
looks
from
better
this
from the
angle.
ground. Yeah, from the ground it looks okay.
Why?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. It's not exactly what you'd call like, you know, like top notch, like 5-star, but I mean, it looks all right.
It looks busted. It
Yeah,
looks
it's
busted.
busted. Come on, it's like the contemporary hotel if they never renovated it.
You know what this looks like, man? It looks like a chocolate lava cake that's been like half eaten.
Yeah, and just looks busted.
Yeah, it just looks busted. Like a lot of Venezuela, really. What else? What else is in this city? Anything interesting? Wait a minute. The Central Commercial Plaza Mayor. What is this?
The Unique Casa.
We all know that brand. I don't. Oh, look. Wow. They've got all of the technologies, like Xbox, although that logo's like from like 2010 or maybe even earlier, and Genius and SanDisk and PlayStation 2. That's a long time ago. And Dell.
And expensive Dell computers.
Expensive Dell computers. And Panasonic and Casio and Luigi and Funko Pops.
Whoa, wait a minute. What's at the top? Am I seeing a RTX graphics card up there in the top?
A
This
gigabyte?
right there. What is that? An RTX I don't know. If that's a graphics card, it's a really old graphics card, I think.
Yeah, I think the store is peddling an older wares, like in every way. It doesn't look bad though, like at least in this area. Like the picture. What in the? Yo, we in the liquor store. Wait, man, oh my god, that is a lot.
Production factory.
Oh my god.
What is that? Is that like the national beverage or something? Why does it look commie?
I don't know. This thing is called Ponche Crema. Can you pull that up off screen, Matthew, real quick? What is Ponche Crema?
Let's see here. It's liqueur. It's Ponche Crema is a cream-based liqueur originating in Venezuela and brought to nearby Trinidad and Tobago. So it's liqueur.
Huh. That's interesting. What
What
else?
is it? What the hell? It says Ponche de Cream, also known as Punch a Cream. Punch a Cream is Caribbean's answer to eggnog.
Oh.
Make it stronger, creamier, and way more festive. It's a holiday drink. a boozy blend of milk, eggs, and aromatics like cinnamon and nutmeg.
Cinnamon and bro, that was the worst slip up possible.
No
The career ender right there, man, bro. No,
Pause.
Man, honestly, like taking a step back, that was pretty funny. If you just said that like flat out, like unironically, just said it to say it, that was funny as hell. But beyond that, that's actually interesting. So it's pretty much a South American, or at least a Venezuelan version of eggnog. And no wonder, this picture came from January of 2025, probably like right after Christmas, I'm guessing, so that would kind of line up. What else do they have around here?
Honestly, I'm not gonna lie though, it sounds kind of good. Like actually, it does sound kind of good. I'm not an alcohol drinker, but it sounds kind of tasty.
Let's go look at their supermarket. What is it? This is the Rio supermarket.
Honestly, a much nicer supermarket than I thought. Is this the cheese section or something? What is this?
This is the cheese and hams.
Huh.
How much does this place cost to buy from? Can we get like price tags? Because I want to know what the average, if the average Venezuelan could come in here. Because it kind of seems like the city is more so geared to the higher ups of Venezuela. So REF, I believe, it would be Venezuelan currency if I'm not mistaken.
Let's see here. I'm trying to get the translation on that right now. How come REF is like an unknown currency? Let's see here. Okay, I'm getting the answer right now. It is 2.24 REF is worth approximately 27 to 37 cents.
So you can get a
Heineken
correct? For 37 cents?
I don't know if that's correct. That seems kind of a little bit weird.
How much does the average Venezuelan make a day, though? That might actually give us a good indicator as to how this is working.
Let's see here. Let's see. So the average salary in Venezuela is around $237 a month, but it varies by profession, experience, and location. So I don't know how to do that math in my head, but that makes this more like $1 or $2 if you account for how much they're making a month.
So then that's pretty much reaching a fairly normal price at that point for at least the consumer base.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Well, they got
Don Julio. Like, yeah. Oh my God.
They got that Don Julio Blanco.
Bro, and it's expensive. It's 77.95 reals, if I'm reading that correctly.
Let's see here. Is that Venezuelan currency to USD? Let's see here. Bolivars. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't know what an REF is. REF Venezuela. Let me pull that up.
It's a VEF.
Convert REF to, so REF is a totally different currency than the Bolivar.
So they're using different currencies in the same country. That's kind of weird.
So it's like
this is confusing as hell. Like some people are calling it a VES, some people are calling it a VEF, and some people are calling it an REF.
What is a Venezuelan REF? So
Bolivar.
There isn't really any answer. Coinbase, this is brought to you by Coinbase. They're actually giving you a conversion from REF to Venezuelan bolivars. So apparently this is something different.
Yeah, it's too confusing for me. Screw that currency. I'm not fooling with it.
So the AI overview is actually giving us an answer. A Venezuelan REF can refer to a Venezuelan referee or a price marked with REF in a Venezuelan store. In the store setting, REF stands for reference and indicates that the price is pegged to the current US dollar value.
That's even more confusing.
No. So that means that the price is $2.30 cents. So this is not bolivars. This is $77.95.
Like in a US dollars?
In US dollars, yeah. So that's what REF actually means.
Cow. And $78 for a bottle of liquor, and that means that beer was like $2 for a bottle of beer.
Yeah,
that's crazy, actually, if that's true.
So from what the AI overview was telling us, folks, REF actually stands for the actual value in US dollars of this item, not in bolivars. So now with that in mind, this bottle of wine costs $7.80. This bottle of wine costs $5.25. If we go back up here, one bottle of beer of Heineken or cerveza is $2.24. Corona is $1.23. So now let's put that into perspective. The average Venezuelan is making about $230 a month. So that one bottle of Don Julio Blanco would cost about a third of their salary. And I think if I remember correctly, Matt, the income tax also takes like half of their salary. So really the reality of it is that they're making about $120 a month, meaning that a single Venezuelan would be able to afford about one bottle of Don Julio Blanco, and then they'd be just about broke and have about $30 left for the rest of the month. So this
That sounds like a private first class budget in the military.
yeah, so basically, folks, the truth of this is that this entire area, this city that we're in, is apparently for Venezuela's top 1%, I would assume, because I don't really think anyone else could afford to be in a place like this unless you're in the top 1%.
Charcuterie. Oh, this has got to be for the top class
yeah.
here. I mean, charcuterie. I mean, come on now. But also at the same time, I still have a hard time believing that. Like, if that's really true, like the REF is the basically USD and their equivalent. That's wild, really.
I'm guessing it has to be, because those prices wouldn't make any other sense otherwise. So that is pretty wild. And also DMR said a bottle of Coke will cost you $2 in the US. Yes, but we're also making on average in America as a median income. I think it's something like about $60,000. Actually, I think it's like a median income for a single individual is like 40,000. The median income or GDP per capita is about 60,000. In Venezuela, the median income is about $230 a month. So, you know, that's not quite a lot of money. That's about $2.4 thousand a year. So while it costs comparable in Venezuela, what you always had to factor in is that people down there are not making anywhere close to what we're making in America. So for them, that's literally an unattainable price. It's unaffordable. So that is actually crazy. Matthew, pull up that REF thing again, and let's make sure that we're doubly sure that that's the direct reference, market reference to the value of the dollar at that given time.
I'm seeing, now I don't like to take Reddit for fact, but I'm seeing people on Reddit say REF means USD. It's a silly way to avoid putting USD on the price tag directly. Let's see here. That's what Reddit's saying, though, so we got to find something better than that. Let's see. Let's see here. Maybe this Reuters article will explain what an REF is. Let's see here. So, reading through here, it says in a country with annual inflation topping 400,000%. Okay, that's not a good start. They say we sell here in dollars. Let's see here. They say the store accepts. I'm trying to read this real quick and get a gist of it. They don't explain REF, but it appears to be that the store that was being covered in this article right here says they accept payment in local bolivar currency with prices converted at the black market exchange rate. That doesn't explain much. Why is it so complicated to figure this out? Like, it seems like they're intentionally making this hard to figure out. Let's see here. REF. Does anybody have an explanation for that? I'll be honest with you, man. I really can't find a straightforward explanation for this. Let's see. Wait a minute. Hold on. I got it. I got it right here. So apparently, based on what I'm reading here on the AI overview, it says price as a reference. REF stands for reference, meaning if something's listed as REF 30, that means it's referring 30 US dollars in reference to 30 US dollars. So it's a sneaky way of trying to mislabel it as not US dollars when it really is, at least according to what I'm reading. But take that with a grain of salt because it's very confusing.
So now knowing that, REF will always stand for the price in dollars, because Wikipedia also said that as well. They stated that REF stands for referencia in Spanish, which means a reference to the US dollar value. So with that in mind, now let's go from Puerto La Cruz, which appears to be where the top 1% is at, to Maracaibo over here in the west. Let's go find the store here, and let's see if they use that as well, the REF. So this appears to be a larger store of some sort that is completely empty.
Yikes.
So let's see if we can get any prices here, and do they say REF on them? Let's see here. What is
The hell is that?
it? Says, please, no something el empaque. I do not know what that means, unfortunately.
Don't touch it. Don't touch it if you're not buying.
Don't touch it if you broke. Like, bro, that's what they're saying. Let's see. This whole store is bare bones empty. Like, most of from the pictures that were taken. And then they have dollar signs in this, but bolivars use dollar signs. So we're trying to see if the REF thing is on any of the price tags, if we can get up close to them. And I'm trying to find them, folks. Give me a second. We're trying to get to the bottom of this. This is something quite interesting here. So that says 49.
Super precio. It's a precious cargo.
Man, precious guy. Let's see. I'm telling you, man. I'm trying to find the prices. I'm
This
dying.
is a bad store as a reference, man. There's no hardly goods in this store. That's what happens after you get done paying these prices. You turn just right to that. This skeleton disregard the sign. It said no sitting. He's sitting.
Bruh, they said
Stupid.
don't. Dude, this is what happens to people who touch that shit that was on that shelf earlier. This is what happens to you.
Oh damn! They got an oxygen tank for the skeleton. He's got to breathe in that fresh. What the hell is this? It's like they got an oxygen tank. They got like a recirculator. I don't even know what the hell this even is.
Dude, he's breathing in that galaxy gas. Like he's not doing oxygen. Oh, look, there it is again. REF, and then it uses the dollar sign, $2.89. So it is a reference to the price of the dollar.
I just have a hard time believing that. That's crazy because $3 for a Venezuelan, that's big money.
Yeah, that's huge money. But then again, a lot of them live in poverty from what they say, and I would have to assume it's true. It is a country that is incredibly bad off financially, and the inflation rate still is skyrocketing to this day. So I would have to assume that they are most likely tagging their prices to the dollar, because that's something that's far more stable than the bolivar.
Yeah, it seems to be, based on what we're reading, that's the way it is, but I just have a hard time believing it.
Yeah, look, there it is again. REF, REF, REF.
Oh wow, you got to be rich to get the melon.
Apparently, you don't have to be to get a papaya. That's only like 49 cents for let's see, per kilo actually. Let's see. So, yeah, you could actually get somewhat an okay amount of papaya. Everything else though, it's off the menu. It's just too expensive.
What the hell sells papaya by the kilo? I thought it was sold by the fruit.
No, that's fruit by the fruit. That's foot by the fruit, or fruit by the foot, or whatever. Like it's that thing. What? Oh, so here's the real price in bolivars: 267,000 bolivars for ketchup.
A Pampero ketchup.
I guess that's the brand, but this is apparently what was before they did the REF deal. This is what the prices would look like. And also, what is this? 24 times 397 GRS.
Then you got to be Albert Einstein to go shopping. You got to be able to do math in your head.
Bro, you got to be like a multi-millionaire to buy a couple of like bottles of ketchup in Venezuela by the bolivar cost.
Yeah. Honestly, it's kind of sad. It's like the Venezuelans have to be like, okay, honey, we're going to the store this weekend. Make sure you bring a couple 100,000.
Bro, bring a couple of mil. We got to go get some meat from the store.
You got to go to the store this weekend, honey. Make sure you withdraw a couple million. We got to go get some food.
Oh my god,
that's sad. Honestly, really though, for like the average person living there, that's really sad.
Go get 7 Billy. We got to go buy a shitbox Nissan. Like, bro, oh my god.
Like, oh, we need to get this bell pepper. Damn it, we were 500,000 short.
Oh my god, let's go. So what about this one? I'm honestly, folks, this is such an interesting rabbit hole to me, that looking at the costs of things in Venezuela. And also the tech is poor. Like it doesn't look that good. This is like a Best Buy equivalent in Venezuela, I'm assuming. Where are the prices? There are no prices anywhere.
Oh, you know it's expensive, but there's no prices.
Oh, do you have to contact an associate to get a price in this place? Oh my god. Yeah, like a TV, folks, 35 million easy. But let's see. What about this store? There's got to be prices, and so that actually is kind of cool. It's like a normal mall, but where the hell are the prices on anything? Like, do they show prices for most places, or are they ashamed of the prices? And
I hope and I pray that the U.S. never gets like this. Like, I heard rumors they were going to come up with a $250 bill soon. I'm hoping that we don't get to this one day.
I'm praying that we do not. That would be pretty bad. Oh, where the hell are the prices? I'm dying to find prices. Where the hell are they? Ew.
Yeah. What the? Is that ham?
I don't know, man. That might be a human. Like, I don't know what's on this
Yeah.
thing. What is up with the corn? It looks like someone like threw up like a watery soup of corn onto this thing. This thing looks gross. Like, look at the mushrooms. They're like turning yellow. That's not healthy. That's not healthy at all. These things are rotten, probably. Ew.
They look like they don't look like they're rotten, but I mean, this is rough. This is really rough.
Compton, she can't take it anymore. The economy's spinning the frick apart. No, hold it together, Scotty. Oh my God, this place is. What in the hell is that? That is.
I don't know.
Miquero. Like, that ain't Mickey. That ain't Mickey, that's for show. But.
Also, be careful scrolling through here, by the way. It's getting sketchy. Like,
Yeah,
scared me a little bit.
Let's see. We need to go find a store. Let's go to the capital, Caracas. There has to be a store we can look at the prices here. This one? Okay, so we got
New York USA Pizza. That doesn't look like New York.
Nah. Honestly, man, I bet you this place got shut down by the authorities here, now that the tensions are starting to drop. Let's see. Anything that shows... Jesus, man, that roof.
Oh, wow. The back room.
I don't think this is up to code, folks. Like, I don't think this place is up to code. I think we need the fire inspector to come through here and check this place. They don't like to list prices on anything. And also, why in the world does this look like it was taken in like a green lit torture room in a Gitmo? Like, the lighting in here looks like intimidating, honestly. I gotta be honest with y'all, they hide the prices hard. Like, they do not want you to know what things are usually priced like. And also, by the way, folks, that caterpillar here, this thing is tweaking. Like, that thing is on something strong for sure. But
you got to pay those prices that they got there with that low salary. You'd be looking like that too,
bruh. Every day you wake up in Venezuela to make your daily pay to buy one slice of bread, I'd look like that too. Like, I'd be absolutely spent.
Let's see here. I'm kind of curious. Let's do this math real quick. Let's see. Let's just say 250 divided by 30. So $8.33 a day. That's apparently what they're making if you divide that by 30 days. And that's before tax. So after tax gouges that, I'm sure it goes down to about $5 or something. So the average Venezuelan's got $5 a day. So get you Heineken. Get maybe a couple of slices of meat, and you're already broke for the day, basically. It's really sad.
That is a tough life to... Oh, here we go. They don't give prices.
Oh, no.
They don't give prices, though. They never give prices on anything. You just can't find them anywhere. Where the hell do they put prices on these damn things here in this country? They don't do that hardly anywhere. They're ashamed of the prices, really. They know it's insane. But anyways.
Also, by the way, I see everybody saying this. At first I thought they were joking, but I've seen like 5 or 6 people say they don't show the prices at most of these places because it changes every day.
That's probably true, honestly. I would assume. So I guess you have...
It's just verbal pricing.
That is insane, honestly. I gotta be honest with y'all. Venezuela sounds like hell to live in. That's not shocking. I'm sure many of y'all already knew that. But this place sounds like an absolute hell to live in here. Also, what does this look like? Oh, wow, this is actually really pretty. Oh, wow, look at that. That's really nice. I like that. That's cool. I wouldn't go here, though, to see it. Like, man, you just left like a whole minute of silence there. I was like, man, I don't know.
I was like, you're scrolling through those pictures, and I was like, just waiting for something bad to pop up or something. I was like, oh, Lord.
I'm not going to lie, man. Some of those pictures, like, scrolling past them, they kind of have, like, a cartel-ish vibe to them a little bit. Like, with how the lighting's bad, like, the lens is always, like, a little greasy. You know, it's like, I don't really know what the next picture is going to be myself. And I'm just like, I hope that it's nothing too bad. But then again, Google wouldn't allow it if it was really bad. You know, like, they would remove it. But anyways, with that, folks, enough of that rabbit hole. I think we all had an interesting time looking at pricing in Venezuela, and we all now understand nobody can afford squat in Venezuela. So with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Nathan Ringerwall, and he puts in a $20 support, and thank you, Nathan, as well, for supporting the channel. And he said, we make jokes about the DPRK, meaning North Korea, but they have a commanding lead in choreography. Example, the Ararang Mass Games.
I'll be honest with you, Nathan, you're right. you're right. They do have a lot of choreography, like the Aryang Mass Games. And I gotta tell you, Matthew, I wouldn't feel bad about slipping up on saying that wrong. The North Korean names are so hard to say. Like I had to listen to like 5 other people say that over the course of years to be like, oh yeah, the Aryang. And even still, I'm probably saying it wrong, and they're probably saying it wrong. They're very hard to pronounce. But beyond that. I would have to say that while they have a lead in that, that's about the only thing that they have a lead in. Everything else has kind of fallen behind. But luckily, folks, if you inform on your neighbors, maybe one day you too can go to Kim Il Sung University and learn all about hustling. This ain't Hustlers University, like this ain't Hustlers, but you definitely will learn much here at Kim Il Sung University because they have a truck yard, and that makes wonders happen, folks. It's the truth of it. Also, the Pyongyang Metro Museum. Like, they even have a history. Like, the whole thing was built in the 70s and 80s, and they've used the same rolling stock since. There's not really a lot to learn from there. What in the world?
I wonder what would happen. Like, for example, let's say Kim Jong Un passes on, and all of a sudden, let's just say hypothetically, this would probably never happen, but let's just say it could. The Kim Jong Un passes on, and all of a sudden the government just disintegrates, and then the people have to decide what they're going to do on their own accord and form a new government in North Korea, which would never happen in a million years. But just hypothetically speaking, let's say North Korea decided to open relations with people to start trading. I wonder if that would even work. Like, with how cut off this country's been for such a long time, could they even start normal relations with people and start rebuilding their country, like, within a decent amount of time, like quickly? Or would they be so hampered and stymied by all these years of isolation that the country just fails so badly that it has to be basically taken over?
Well, the thing is that if they opened up to trade, they don't really have a lot to trade. Like, the only thing they could really trade is coal. And that's about it. Like, that's really the only material they make that anyone will want to buy is coal. And even still, they hardly produce a high yield of it because most of it's done by hand still.
Yeah. Also, I see a couple of people saying China would take over. They probably would because China has a lot of interest in North Korea. They would probably take it over. And honestly, that'd probably be the only way forward because my personal hypothesis is the people would be so used to being told what to think and told what to do and literally having nothing that nobody would have the proper education to really lead the world in a global economy. Nobody there would have that except for the ruling party. And in the hypothetical I'm talking about, the ruling party wouldn't be in power anymore. They'd have disintegrated. So I don't think the country would have the ability to lead themselves. Honestly, I think China would basically take it over.
I would be honest with you. I don't think they would want to take it over because they'd still want a buffer zone with South Korea, which is U.S. backed. So I don't really think they'd want to take it over because then Chinese forces would be looking straight down at South Korean and American forces, and then that could lead to escalations in the future, possibly for this and that reason. Especially with the whole deal coming up with Taiwan, it would be better to keep them as a buffer, I think. But still, like honestly, folks, I think if North Korea did break away, considering that their society is so brainwashed to conformity, that might actually be in their favor if they broke away, because at least for a while they would have a very homogenous and most likely non-combatant sort of amount of civil unrest, I'd assume, and that would lead to them being able to keep a stable internal situation and then start developing themselves economically, maybe. Like, the Chinese would probably get heavily involved in that, and they could also get loans from the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, or from foreign lenders to start investing in their own country, because a lot of people would know that there would be investment projects that would start to succeed, especially considering that there would be a free market at that point. But it would be a slow rise. Like, it would not be quick for the North Koreans. It would be a pretty slow rise. And on top of that, South Korea sure as hell would not want to reunify with them, because that would literally drag them down into the abyss if they tried to, because North Korea is so economically screwed, there's really no way to help them. They have to help themselves.
Yeah, it would be a tough one, honestly. I think it would honestly be a mess. Like if the ruling party went disintegrated there, it would be a mess.
Yeah, something else that's interesting, looking at the city of Pyongyang, it's really interesting how they've built the city over the Taedong River and also over the Potong River and this river as well. Because I'll be honest with y'all, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like these rivers are actually somewhat sizable, and when you look at the way that the city's laid out, it's like, wouldn't it have made it more sense to build it up here, kind of on this plain, and then build it up, like outwards in this direction as well? Like, they left this entire region on the east undeveloped, for no reason, it appears, just because. It's like this city, like as far as the planning of it, it doesn't really make a lot of sense because they pretty much split the city in two on the Taedong River, and they had to build, what was it, one, two, three, four, five, six bridges across the river to connect the whole city. Like that's just logistically goofy, honestly. Like, you would see that in a city like London, which naturally built around the river, but they had to rebuild this whole city after the Korean War ended in 1953. So it's like, why the hell would they even build the city like that? I would have honestly, folks, just abandoned the entire southern bank of the Taedong. I would have just built the whole thing out up here because the rivers are smaller, the currents would be smaller, and you also don't have to build massive monumental bridges to connect the whole city. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. But anyways, enough of that, folks. That's just something I was like, why the hell would they do that? But anyways, it is time for us to move on. Also, what is in the National Gifts Exos? They don't ever have pictures. I forgot. The Pyongyang flour processing plant. Dude, you got to have a high position in the government to be processing flour, man. Like the food of the country, man. You got to be high up to work here. Although these tenements don't really appear to show that.
You got to be serving multi-purpose to work in the flour facility.
Man, because it's all rising. Like, man, it's
That's
like,
right. That's
it's
right.
self-rising, man. They on that grind, on God. Man, I'll be honest with you, man. Like North Korea is like, just looking at it on satellite, like it's rough looking down there. Like you'll have these larger buildings and then amidst them like almost what looks like derelict smaller houses, almost like traditional houses. Really rough place. But anyways, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Tino D. And thank you very much, Tino, for that $20 support right there. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And they said, you guys mentioned that the world is on fire, and I get that sentiment, but the world has always been on fire, and peace is super rare, and war is pretty much the norm. And your thoughts? And I would agree with that. The world's never been peaceful, as in like the world is completely at peace. It never has been. But at the same time, though, you have to admit, even though you're skeptical, that the frequency of wars breaking out is higher than it's been in a long time right now. And the frequency of wars starting ebbs and flows. I would say right now it's definitely peaking right now. I'm not sure if wars could start at a faster rate than what's happening currently. It seems like it's at its peak. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree with Enforcer Matt. Wars are incredibly common. Historically, there's never really been a lack of war. But the issue is that war is so prevalent right now, it generally isn't like this most of the time. You usually see that one region will be embroiled in war while the rest are relatively stable or peaceful. You usually don't see all regions embroiled in pretty much endless war like we're seeing right now. This is a little bit rare, actually. But still, a big thanks to you once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Gunfox. And thank you very much, Gunfox, for that $20 support. And he said, Steam Locomotive P38-0001, A20. Might as well kick off that rabbit hole. Robert Stevenson and Hawthorne Works, number 7673, SNL, number 62.
And you know what, folks? This rabbit hole is one that was going to happen. I introduced to you I think this is what was the name of this thing? Oh, God. What's the name of this thing? I don't even know. It's like it's right there on the engine. The Antrieb. This is the biggest steam engine that was ever made in the Soviet Union, that is. There were bigger ones here made in America because we're just great like that, They can't beat us because they ain't us. But this thing was built because some idiots from the Soviet Union came over and they saw the Union Pacific Class 9000. And let me get that one for y'all. This is the Union Pacific Class 9000. Well, that's not really a good example of it. That one's one that's getting restored. Let me go get y'all a picture of it when it was running. This is the Union Pacific 9000 class. The Soviets came over here to America, and they were Stalin at the time was wanting to build out the Soviet rail system to be a lot more robust and also a lot more heavy lifting. So they wanted to build a giant engine. So they came over here, and they looked at the Union Pacific Class 9000, and they went, wow, let's make it even bigger. So they made this thing, which is kind of their copy of the Class 9000. But worse. I think they added 2 whole additional road wheel axles to this engine. And if I can get y'all a side profile of this horrendous looking creature. Yeah, here we go. Here's the side profile. So it has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It has 7 driving wheels. So it is a 414 4. Which is insane. It's unheard of. When the engine started to get this big, Even the Class 9000 ran into this problem. Here in America, we did what was called an articulated engine with a articulated chassis, and the original attempt at that, at least for the Union Pacific, was the Challenger, which is the predecessor to the Big Boys. The Big Boys are the more commonly known ones, but the Challenger was the first, and that allowed it to still be able to corner, but also get a lot more power down onto the rails, the Challenger type. Later on, we would modify that with the Big Boy and turn it into a 4884, which is generally the biggest ones that were seen on the UP, and there were others like that elsewhere throughout the country. The Soviets just made this thing, and it was bad in every way. It's a huge rabbit hole to explain in every way that this thing was bad, because steam engines are actually fairly intricate with their mechanisms and how they operate and how tractive effort is applied to the rails and so on and so forth. But this thing was a failure. Basically, to run it down, the most important reason why it was a failure, it was so heavy that wherever it would go, it would just rip the rails apart right under it. And it also could not turn. Like, if there was ever a curve in a track, it just ripped those clean out. And it also would derail everywhere. So it was a complete failure in every single way. And they ended up getting rid of them and scrapping them, I think, after a couple of years. I think they only made one of them, and it was scrapped a couple of years after it was brought into service. An absolute complete failure. Nowhere close to the wonderful and industrious engines of the United States of America, which truly still stand as the peak of railroad engineering, steam engineering, that is, around the world. That's not an opinion. That is a hardcore fact. The United Kingdom had beautiful engines, but they never became as mechanically complex or heavy pulling as American engines. If y'all want to see that, let me show y'all this. Flying Scotsman versus U.S. engine. Let me see if there is the picture here. The comparison. Oh, yeah, here we go. This is Union Pacific Big Boy 17, or at least the head end of it. And almost the full boiler length of the Flying Scotsman. This was in its rare American tour that it made back in the 70s, I think. But you can see that the Flying Scotsman, it's famous, world famous, and it's a beautiful engine. But it's a lot smaller, tractive effort was a lot smaller, and everything else generally was a fair deal smaller for British engines than American ones, in every single way. Here's another example of that. In America, the Flying Scotsman is about the size of what a 460 Mogul would have been back in the day, or a 442 Atlantic type. So it's actually a little bit crazy to consider that, like, because I would say that the British were probably the second best steam engine designers in the world, behind the United States, and even still, their engines never got up to the size and power that American engines were able to get up to during that period, which is really crazy. And the Soviets just sucked at it entirely. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, folks, it's time for us to get on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Tubular Mindwave, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Tubular Mindwave, for that support as well. And they said coffee. They put in the coffee emoji, the gas emoji, and the magic emoji.
And I gotta say, coffee does make magic. It makes this show happen. And I gotta thank you for the support to the Coffee Fund, because you're helping us to keep this magic running every day. And so, a huge thanks to you so much once again for the incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would have just never been able to make this thing possible and reality up until this day. So, a humongous, incredible thanks to you so much once again. And with that, I also see some people saying steam engines are so fascinating. They really are. They're technically economic nightmares to run, and also they're also running nightmares operationally. But one thing that is really neat, sort of an idea, like the most simple concept of the steam engine in every single way, is that you are pretty much putting a fire under a kettle, like a tea kettle, and that kettle builds up steam and it releases. That's when you hear the whistling, and then you just use the power of that steam that's escaping the kettle to turn a piston. That's the most basic concept of a steam engine. And when you look at it that way, they become a lot simpler than what they really are in reality, because in the 40s they were getting insane. I mean, have y'all ever seen the cab of Union Pacific 4014 and how complex interior cab. Have you all ever seen how complex the interior cabs of late era steam engines are? This is the internal cab of Union Pacific 4014, and you have to know how to operate every single one of those dials inside of the cab of that engine to make sure that it's steaming properly, it's burning properly, and it's boiling the water properly, as well as everything else. It's a really sort of a complicated process at that point, but still incredibly fascinating nonetheless from a mechanical sense. But still, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Interstate Chef, who puts in the 20. And thank you very much, good sir, as well, for that support. He said, hello, enforcers, and add another super chat. He said, way off subject, though. I'm real big into weather, and I just watched a documentary of the 2011 super tornado outbreak. And were y'all there, or do you remember it? And thanks in LTLSA. Honestly, 2011, I would have been 11 years old then. So I vaguely remember something about it, but at that point, I didn't really know how to use the internet that well at that point. I think I was barely using. I can't remember honestly, like what the hell I was using. 11. I can't even really remember where I was at 11 years old at this point. Like I've already forgotten. Hell, where was I at 11? Like I don't even know if I was still living in Montgomery at that point, or if had moved on, or I don't
Oh, we
know.
had
But
moved on.
enforcer. Oh, we had moved on at that point?
Yeah, we had moved on. That was when that giant tornado came through Tuscaloosa and ripped up like half the city.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I know where I was now.
Yeah, actually, we did live through that. I don't really remember it too well, but I've looked back into it and listened to documentaries about it, and it was an insane time, the tornado outbreaks of 2011. I remember hearing a little bit of it because I was very young at that point. I was 9 years old when that happened, but I remember hearing about all of the giant tornadoes that had ripped through Alabama, torn apart swaths of it. And it was crazy, honestly. The damage that was done to Tuscaloosa was unreal. And so yeah, we actually were around in Alabama when that happened. That whole tornado outbreak. It's just that I don't really remember it too well because I was 9 when that happened. So it's kind of like a distant memory at this point. And also, we really weren't directly affected by it. Funnily enough, every tornado that we've ever been affected by were smaller ones that happened here in the state. But there was tornadoes that ripped through here all the time. This is actually known nowadays as Dixie Alley, if I'm not mistaken, which is pretty much Tornado Alley, but has now moved further towards the east here in the south. And one of them, because this one happened so long ago, we can talk about it. One of them was actually an EF3 tornado that blasted through Wetumpka, Alabama. You can actually see the path that it left behind right here on this very side of the Coosa River. It literally ripped up everything through this part of the town. It was an EF3, so it wasn't extremely strong. It wasn't an EF4 or an EF5 or anything like that. Crazy enough, the first EF5, I think in like 13 years, happened a few days ago out in the Midwest somewhere. But beyond that, this one got within a very short distance of us. I think it was less than a few miles away, like 3 miles away at one point from us. So you could actually hear the thing out there. But that one was actually very scary. And then there was another one that was incredibly scary, and that one got less than a mile from us. But I can't see where that one was because that's still an operational. Yeah, that one was really sketchy.
Honestly, we've had bad luck with like tornado encounters. Like we've never been directly hit by them, but we've had a lot of close calls with tornadoes. I remember I had a close call with a tornado out in the backwoods of Mississippi visiting my grandmother when I was young. The tornado literally ripped straight by the highway where we were driving and nearly got us. Also had a close call there outside of Wetumpka, had a close call, and also had the close call up here in Birmingham too, where the tornado literally passed by the hill, like right next to our house. And you could literally feel like the air changing and like the pressure changing. It was that close. So we've been lucky not to get hit by them, actually. Very, very close.
Yeah, a lot of them have actually come crazily close, which is really wild, actually, because I remember thinking, oh, I'll probably never be affected by a tornado. And then over the past 6 years, we've probably been within the vicinity of at least 3 of them that I can think of off the top of my head. But like, I mean, less than a couple of miles away or a mile away, which is really wild. And also scary because, that those things make quite a lot of noise, and they're usually knocking out the power when they're coming through as well. So all the lights go out when they get incredibly close because they're ripping up power lines. But unfortunately,
also one earthquake too. One earthquake as well. I remember back when we were still in Wetumpka that an earthquake hit in Tennessee, and it was like a smaller one. It was like a 4 or I think a 4 or a 5 or something. And I remember feeling very early in the morning the small little tremors from the earthquake all the way from Tennessee down to the central part of Alabama, which was weird as hell. But you could actually feel it very slightly.
yeah, it's really that was I don't remember that. I think I was sleeping through that actually or something. I didn't remember that one. But we did go through a little, or it was like a very tiny earthquake, like almost not noticeable. It just kind of like rattled things for a second, and I think it was over. Um, and then one time a space shuttle actually flew over us once while we were in Wetumpka. Like, don't you remember that, Matthew? It was one of the last flights of the shuttle, and its flight path was kind of odd as it was getting down to Fort Lauderdale, so it actually flew over Wetumpka, and the sonic boom could be heard in the city. And then it was written in the paper, I think the next day or two afterwards, that the space shuttle had flown right over Wetumpka.
I vaguely remember something like that, I think. And also, we got hit by Katrina too. We got the aftermath of Katrina when that hit, like way back in the day.
And actually, we got the aftermath. Well, actually, like the outskirts of pretty much every major hurricane y'all ever heard of in the late 2010s, like Irma, all those sorts of hurricanes. We would get the periphery of it here in the south in this area, and that was rough. I mean, like it wasn't like hurricane force, like near to the eye of the thing, but the winds would be blowing, trees would almost be going sideways sometimes in some places. That was pretty wild. And hey, by the way, you can actually see a swath right there. Y'all see that, folks? Right there where my mouse cursor's on. That's actually where another tornado went through a little while ago here in Alabama. And you can actually see that it ripped up a lot of the trees and foliage in that area right through there. And when you zoom in, you don't see it any longer. But when you zoom out, you can clearly see the path of that tornado. That's another one that came through, I think, about a year and a half ago.
Oh, also, by the way, I see people saying, would you rather deal with earthquakes or tornadoes? Because Utah has earthquakes. I'll be honest with you, I'd rather deal with an earthquake. You get messed up by a big tornado and you're finished. Like, it doesn't matter what you're in, especially if you're in a structure that's not super sound or like made of brick or something. You get hit by a big enough tornado and you're screwed. I would rather deal with the earthquake. Like, I know earthquakes can be deadly too, but I feel like you can survive that a little easier than a tornado.
Usually most earthquakes are not fatal for most people who run into one. Like you can be directly affected by an earthquake and not even get injured. With a tornado, if a tornado comes by you and you're pretty much right in its path, you're going to be injured or killed most likely, especially if it's an EF3 or greater, which usually around here that's the case. So like I would personally say I would rather deal with an earthquake than a tornado, but I've never dealt with a big earthquake to really know what my preference would be. Because I would bet you if you felt the entire earth shaking underneath you and it really did not stop, I bet you that would be very unsettling and scary in its own way, kind of like a tornado would be. But with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in our opinions. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to James Hughes, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, James, for that support and being a longtime channel legend as well. And he said, Enforcers, you are right. We are in the second Cold War, but it won't last long, and it will be in a hot war soon. Or will the Cold War end peacefully? And I fear China the most if Xi stays in power. And what are your thoughts?
I definitely fear China the most out of them all for their potential. Right now, I would fear the Russian situation the most because it's the one that's going to kick off the quickest here. But the Chinese are the scariest because of the potential. Now, as far as the other part of that question, I would say that I don't think it's going to last that much longer either because we most likely will see a larger war happen. Because nowadays, it just doesn't really seem like anyone likes to pursue the path of peace. At least our adversaries speaking, particularly about that, they don't really like to pursue the path of peace. They like to pursue the path at war at all costs, which really forces our hand that we also have to pursue largely the same sort of an end at that point because we don't really have a control to be able to try and find a way to stop a conflict. So I would actually agree with you, but I do thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Jason Carney, who puts in a 19. And Jason said Taco Bell or Wendy's tonight. Honestly, neither. I'll take neither.
Honestly, I think I'm going to do, let's see here. I actually don't know, folks. I actually don't know what I'm going to be eating after this show tonight. That's a great question, though. And honestly, now you got me thinking about it. I'll probably get like some jalapeno flavored potato chips. That'll probably be what I'm getting. Or maybe, well, actually, we're out of cheese, so I can't do cheese and crackers. So that's off the table. There's something that I'm thinking about, Matthew, that's like pretty tasty. And I was thinking about it earlier in the show, and we have it. I can't think of what it is, though. But I guess I'll have to figure it out once I get off the air. So I actually don't know, but it's not going to be Taco Bell, and it's not going to be Wendy's tonight, luckily, because I'm getting kind of worn out from fast food, folks. We eat out so much because we have so little time to be able to cook or anything. We are just absolutely cooked on eating anything out. But still, a big thanks to you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Rebecca Bruce, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Rebecca, for that support as well. And we also have a 10 from Julie Jules, who said LOC, and a huge LOC to you as well. And we also have a 10 from Robert Krogan, who said, you seem hungry.
I seem hungry? Well, I actually haven't been hungry through... Oh! The pizza! That's what I was thinking about, Matthew. The pizza. That's actually what I'm going to be eating off of the air. We actually have pizza. It's the pizza fund was used today, so we'll be most likely having pizza, I'd assume. I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel keep on. You know what? Now that you reminded me, I actually do feel hungry. Now I do feel hungry. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Interstate Chef, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Interstate Chef, for that support as well. He said, one more. He said, Enforcer Matt said something earlier. Do you know how much of our stuff is still in Afghanistan, and how big is their army? And also, by the way, the estimates, and by the way, we have no concrete figures, it's simply estimates. They estimate the U.S. military left about $7 billion worth of equipment in Afghanistan, with most of it left at Bagram. And obviously, most of that fell into the hands of the Taliban. So they tried to scuttle the very important equipment, and they left the other stuff basically untouched. So the Taliban now have all that in their possession. Also, by the way, I'm trying to read here real quick. Apparently 300,000 weapons were left behind, 1.5 million rounds of specialty and small arms ammunition, which actually explains where they're getting their ammo from, that we're seeing them fire in those videos. 99,000 grenade cartridges were left. And also, let's see here, the Taliban claim they seized more than 300,000 light arms and 26,000 heavy weapons. And also all the MRAPs, the Humvees, and countless aircraft that were left behind. So we left behind a hell of a lot, which was a huge mistake, in my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
I feel like Enforcer Man answered that question well. That's exactly what we left behind. But I do have to be a bit of a stickler here, Matt. You were wrong on the money amount. It's not $7 billion. It was $7.1 billion. Get your facts straight. It was about 7 point. From what I saw earlier today. Speaking of which, that's where I got it from. I saw that someone said it was estimated at 7.1 billion. But once again, it's an estimate. So there's a margin of error there, probably by a couple of $100 million at that point. So all within the same range. But I would hope that we answered that question well. And a big thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Notorious GRG, who puts in a 10. And he said, better late than never, and congrats on the 500,000 and your new Enforcer Studio 3.0 Plus, having a top-tier channel.
Hey, thank you so much for the support and the kind words. And hopefully, Enforcer HQ 3.0 in Salt Lake City, Utah, will be a great and amazing HQ. I have a feeling it will be, without a doubt. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, we're saying 7 billion with a B, by the way, for the people asking, did you say 7 million or billion? No, I'm saying $7 billion worth of equipment left behind at Bagram. That's how much we actually left behind, according to estimates. So, huge amount of equipment there that the Taliban now have their hands on. But also, by the way, we got a $5 super chat from No Please. And thank you very much, No Please, for that $5 super chat. And they said, great stream. And some might say, the greatest stream on YouTube. Can you believe it? Only the Enforcers can do it. Phenomenal is what they call it, really.
I gotta be honest with you. Only the Enforcers can do this. Some people say, give him a Nobel. I called up my top generals and they said, sir, you have to get the Nobel. And I said, I got Nobel because this bench don't ring. But beyond that, I gotta say, a big thanks to you so much for the kind words and the support, because I gotta be honest with you, only some channels can do this so well. Some people call us up and they go, sir, it's a wonderful channel. It's an incredible channel. Some of the greatest. Some other people, they say they can't tap the Enforcer channel, and to be entirely honest with you, they're not wrong. They're not wrong. It's the greatest channel ever seen. So many people have been saying that if our founding fathers tried to run a stream, they couldn't even run it better either. Some people have been saying that they want a monopoly in this space, kind of a sort of, but I generally think that monopolies might not be great, but Enforcer to the moon, monopoly, great thing to see. By the way, I just want to announce that we are now going to be going on a war against stealth warships. They're really ugly looking. Have you looked at them? They look like they took Tylenol as a kid. It's a really stupid looking thing. We're gonna have to get rid of them. And on top of that, another thing that I have to say is that whole Middle East situation, it's a crazy sort of a thing. They say it's the middle of the East, but that doesn't really make any sense, because the East is always off to your right. And how in the hell can you be in the middle of the right? I don't know. It makes no sense to me, because, the West is off to the left, the East is off to the right, the North is up, like towards the sky, the South is down to the pits of hell, or wherever the hell that goes. Speaking of the pits of hell, I talked to Nicolas Maduro, and he sat there and said some absolutely ridiculous stuff. He said he saved our embassy from being bombed, but we abandoned that like 6 years ago. His military is really lame, and really stupid military. I looked at them and they were trying to get these reservists going, and they had an armored unit in the reservists. It was really impressive. I could honestly not believe that they were able to move, but they were able to move. And China, they've been cutting off rare metals. Rare metals, it's crazy. They call them rare, and a lot of people say they're not really rare, but they're rare because we call them that, and it makes it sound better and cooler. And we like scannium. Scannium, that's what they use at the Costco's to scan your chicken, rotisserie chicken. They use scannium. Can you believe it? Can you believe it, Enforcer Matt? They use scannium. It's crazy, really. Huge development. But beyond that, I don't know if they use scannium, to be honest with you. Like, it just sounds like something you do because you scan the foods to buy them, and that's all that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense, but I'm going to give it over here to the Department of Health, the Secretary of Health, and let him talk a little bit more about Costco rotisserie chicken. Take it away.
I'm not really sure what you want me to say. It's really something that you really ought to think about before you just simply carelessly pass something over to somebody. You know, it's really something that ow. I was banging my arm into the chair.
All right, everyone. I think the health secretary is having a bit of a health crisis right now. It doesn't sound that good. Maybe you ought to take a acetaminophen or whatever the hell that's called. Do you need a Tylenol?
Don't take it. Oh my God, that hurts so bad. I just repositioned in my chair and I slammed my arm into the side of my chair like armrest just now. That hurt like hell. Wow. That hurts so bad.
I'm not gonna lie, he's sounding kind of a little sus. He's sounding like he went, oh. I was like, that's a little questionable. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that's how did you hit your arm? How in the world did you do that?
Well, you see, I tried to reposition in the chair, and I turned to the right, and I banged it into the armrest. I said, make sure you pay attention before you bang the elbows into an armrest.
I gotta be honest with y'all. We've been banging into a lot of stuff lately. A lot of issues. Some issues with the press, some issues with the chairs, and some people have been saying, where is that lisp? And I'm saying, what lisp? I don't know about lisps. None of what
Shut your mouth about that list.
Nobody in our administration has a lisp. Nobody at all. Everyone's been asking about it. I don't know what they're talking about. But I do know this. That every once in a while, we travel around, and every once in a while we go to an island. We go to a nice island. It's called Puerto Rico. Great place. Great, wonderful place. Beautiful beaches. Fake news. There is no lisps. There's only shopping lists. That's the only thing that makes sense. But we're going down to Venezuela. We're going to do something to them. Do something really nasty because they're not nice guys. They're nasty guys.
We've got to move on. We've got to move on.
How many super chats do we have left? Hit me with it.
We have some, but we need live chats.
Oh, yeah, we need live chats because they're still alive. They're still alive out there, folks. We're trying to get them back. We're trying to make live chats great again. Anyways, with that, a big thanks to you for the support. I hope that addressed your super chat well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also a huge shout out to Blazant, who put in a $3 support. And thank you very much, Blazant, as always, for that support. And we also have a 2 from Dupper Bob, who said Slava Ukraine. And thank you very much, Dupper, as well. And Hero Slava to you. And we also had a 2 from Bruce Lee, who said the Afghans have no beepers. They still got balls to invade, though.
Man, honestly, that's deep, really. That's deep. But still, a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we got a 2 from Otto Lee Productions. And thank you very much, Otto, for that $2 support. And he said, do you guys prepare for emergency situations? And I do a little bit, a little small side prepping on the side, but nothing too crazy. I don't stockpile beans or anything, but not bashing anybody that does, though. Like if you want to stockpile some beans, have at it. But Enforcer, what say you?
Actually, I thought when that question was asked, you were talking about emergencies like emergency news developments. We do prepare for those. As far as doomsday prepping, I don't really do a lot of doomsday prepping. People say, sir, you have to prep. And I go, I don't like to prep. I don't like beans. Beans give me nasty gas. gas. And speaking of nasty gas, there's all kinds of nasty gas coming out of Venezuela. They have high sulfur content in the oil. We all go down there and we look at the oil and it smells like hell. And I go, oh my God, it's that Maduro oil. Put it back in the ground. And I'll be honest with you, that must be what those crazy people who flooded to America from the asylums, those asylums must have sniffed. They must have sniffed that sulfur because they've gone crazy. They're hellish. One of them tried to eat themselves on a plane. Don't quote me on that, but they tried to eat themselves. We sent them back and he turned himself into a full course meal, ate himself. Really crazy stuff. Many such cases, but outside of that, I'd have to be honest with you, just completely straight up with you. I don't even know where the hell I'm going with this, but why make bad when good? It's good. Stuff is great and stuff is wonderful. And it's always a good thing to say that things are getting better, although sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're not. Like the economy. The economy's not really getting better. We did lower the price of eggs, but everything else kind of went up a little bit. But what can you do? What can you do? I mean, you know, they say that you got to break a couple of eggs to make an omelet, and we didn't break any eggs, but we sure as hell are cooking an omelet because the economy is a little cooked. Been so for years, but we don't really know how to fix this one. This one's a little bit beyond everyone's capabilities, so I don't know what we're going to do. Honestly, we're kind of good. But anyway, so that I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Blind Man, who puts in it too. And thank you very much, Blind Man, for that $2 support. He said, doesn't World War III seem like OPEC versus NATO? Kind of, a little bit. Like, I can kind of see where you're coming from with that. But I would say, I can kind of see that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say kinda, but not really, because a lot of the OPEC members in the Middle East are actually on our side, largely, or they at least lean in that direction. So I would say that it more so is just a loose alliance of a bunch of countries that don't really have a lot in common per se, where they're like an all-in-one specific group, because Russia is a part of OPEC, but, you know, they're really the only one that's against us, honestly. Iran is a part of, nothing, honestly. They're just kind of with the rest of them. China's a part of BRICS, but I don't think they're a part of OPEC. So I'll be entirely honest with y'all. I think it's more so just a loose amalgamation of people who are just anti-Western is the best way to put it. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And a big thanks to you once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And with that, folks, it's now time to get our live chat questions and also our Morse code decoders of the stream. Tonight, we have Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Mason Miami, Joni Dog, Norm Pritchett, Airbell Garbo, Her Royal Fluffiness, Kush, Kobio Tarek Sire, and Brian Blairstown. They said the Morse says, and Pakistan hit them with the airstrike. And oh my gosh, the Afghans are invading. And LTLSA.
And that's the sound of money. Y'all hit the Morse code message of the night. I had to congratulate the amazing Morse code decoders for getting that message correct. It's an absolutely incredible and amazing thing to know the Lee Spring Army Signal Corps is able to get that correct each and every single night. And so with that, folks, it's time for us to start moving on into one last super chat here, as a matter of fact. And then we're going to be moving into our live chats and hopefully getting as many of them as we can before the night rounds out.
All right, so our last super chat here goes to Blind Man once again, who puts into 5. He said, fun fact, Alan makes an appearance in BBC Talking Animals, and also LSA and good night.
Really? That's actually pretty cool, and I thank you so much for your support. We'll have to look into that. But a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that, folks, it's time for us to get on into the live chats. I think we will be able to take 4 live chats tonight. Very generous. We moved up from 3 to 4. That's a huge improvement. A lot of people have been saying only the best improvement. Very huge improvement, a great one, some of the best. Some people have said, wow, you're so generous, 3 super chats, and now it's 4, we're really growing. But with that, it's time for us to get to the 4th to last question of the night.
All right, so this one goes to Dave W, who said, would the A-10's Gatling gun be effective against drones?
Not necessarily, because the 30mm Gatling gun, we have to consider the backdrop behind that thing when it's used, because those rounds do travel for quite a distance. So I would say that it's not necessarily the most effective thing to deal with drones, and also firing that 30mm for even a short burst is quite expensive. So it starts to beat the cost economy side of things on top of the flight hours for the aircraft, which also cost a great deal of money. And so with that, I hope that does address it the best we can. And with that, we are on to the 3rd to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Kit Boga, who said, do you still think it's not a big deal that we left $7 billion worth of equipment in Afghanistan? Honestly, I always thought it was a big deal personally. I mean, I never made it seem like it was small. So I would say it's still a big deal. But the problem is, though, just because it's a big deal, that doesn't give everybody a free pass to go reinvade Afghanistan, in my personal opinion. Even if the U.S. wanted to do that, it would be very unwise to do that. It's $7 billion, but that was like years ago, and it's been there for a long time. And obviously, the Taliban are now using it. So the damage is done. The bad decision was made, and we got to leave it in the past. But Enforcer, what say you?
I pretty much agree with Enforcer Matt on that one, so I hope that does address that well. And also, we have a 5 from Irish Ed, and Irish Ed said, Irish Ed here, hey! Great to see you again, Irish Ed, and thanks for what you do. And thank you so much, Irish Ed, for enjoying what we do. And I gotta say, it's great to have you here tonight, and to know that you're here with us. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
All right. And also, by the way, that was Kit Boga is the GOAT. That's who that was, by the way. I see some people saying, is that Kit Boga? I'm not sure if that's a YouTuber or something. I think I've heard that name somewhere, but it was Kit Boga is the GOAT was the user that said that on our chat. So with that, folks, we're moving on to our next live chat question here, which goes to Brian Blairstown. He said, will the Saudis come to the Pakistanis' rescue with new mutual defense agreement?
That's a great question, and I would not know about this particular situation. I think that defensive alliance is mostly geared towards Iran. Because also notice, folks, how Iran requested to join that alliance, and it was just quietly ignored that they did that. That's clearly showing that this defensive alliance is geared towards them. So I do not think that they'll respond to the Afghan situation right now, or that the Pakistanis will call on them to honor the defensive pact and help them in the defense against the Afghans. I feel like that's a little unlikely at the moment. But with that, I hope that does address that the best that we can. And with that, actually, it turns out the Kit Boga fella is actually somewhat of a bigger YouTuber from what it appears. I don't know if that Kit Boga was the same one. It wasn't?
No. It was Kit Boga is the GOAT. That's the username of the person in the chat that threw in that that live chat right there.
Oh, so they're a fan
I haven't heard of it. Yeah, I think so. I have not heard, or I don't know of Kit Boga. I've heard the name somewhere before, but I didn't know what they did.
Oh, interesting. I personally didn't know about that YouTuber myself, folks. There's so many people who do YouTube these days, but still, a lot of them do pretty good work at what they do. But anyways, with that, folks, it's time for us to get on into the final question of the night. And so who is the lucky last person to put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Draconia, who said it was to keep Pakistan from just launching tactical nuclear weapons on the Taliban.
Technically there really isn't anything stopping them, but their nuclear doctrine is defensive like everyone's, so there has to be some sort of an existential threat to the existence of the state for them to use a nuclear weapon. So generally that's the threshold that has to be met, and the Taliban is most likely never going to reach that threshold. So in theory, there really isn't anything holding them back from doing that, but in reality, it's their nuclear doctrine and what it says has to be achieved for them to use a nuclear weapon. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, and we've reached the end of tonight's stream, folks. I've got to say that tonight was one hell of a show. I've got to thank all of y'all for being here. We had a peak viewership of 17.7 thousand people, and over the course of the stream, 150,000 people have watched. That is an absolutely tremendous amount, and we have to thank you all, once again, the hundreds of thousands of y'all who have enjoyed this stream tonight for watching. If y'all have enjoyed, please make sure to subscribe, to like, and to comment, because we would love to have y'all around, because we cover news here on this channel 6 days a week, every single day, except for Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and we always cover exactly what is going on around the world every day. And so with that, we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of news from around the world, and to also run our famous Sunday fundraisers. And so with that, we will see you all then. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini, Hurram Slava, long live the Least Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, a huge shout out to the 150,000 people that were here by the end of the stream. And we will see you all tomorrow on that Sunday night fundraiser stream at 10 p.m. Eastern. And if there is a short video to make, the Enforcer will be making it midday. So with that, thank you all once again. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Hiram Slava, get some rest, and good night.